Hi everybody and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you're returning, thank you as always. I adore you all. So for today, we've got a compilation of all of the minis that I've done year to date. So get ready for a whole bunch of miniatures for your tier trays or other decor. DIY number 1. For this project, I have ordered these wood trays from Amazon. It was a pack of 5. I think it was like $25, and I thought it was a really good price. And then I have a couple of handles from Dollar Tree plungers, which you can see I cut down with my little miter box. I basically cut the screwy ends off of them and then cut them in half. And I'm just gonna sand them down on the edges, just make sure everything is nice and clean. And I'm taking a look at these, and I guess I was trying to make sure that they were the same length, but I'm showing you now that I screwed holes in the bottoms of them. So I did larger holes at one end on 2 of them where I can actually fit my screw head down inside of it. So that's that end. And then the other end, I screwed a regular, or I drilled, I should say, a regular size hole that my screw will be able to screw into. And I did that at the bottom of all 3. So 2 large holes in 2 of the things, and then 3 regular, holes that I drilled. Hopefully it'll make sense a little bit later as I put it together. But right now I have found the center of my 3 trays that I am using from that pack, and I'm just drilling a hole the same size as what I need for my screw. And I basically had taken a piece of paper and made a template, like I traced my circles onto it, folded the circles in half and then in half again to find center. So it was just an easy way for me to find center on these. I didn't show how I did that, but hopefully you understand what I mean. So I'm going to take my Gorilla wood glue, and I've got that large hole there that my screw head fits into. I'm going to put some wood glue down inside of here. So I'm going to drop my screw back down inside there, and then I am going to fill it the rest of the way with wood glue. And I'm trying to be real careful not to get it on the threads of the screw, because I'm going to want to be able to screw my pieces together later, and so I don't want the glue jamming that up. And here I'm just checking to make sure that the screw is standing upright and not leaning to any one side, because I want to make sure that everything screws together straight. So hopefully as I go here you'll understand what I'm trying to do. Essentially, I wanted to have a way to screw all of these pieces together without it being visible. So this was my makeshift way of having a screw connecting 2 different pieces of the wood pull together. Hopefully that makes sense. So now I've decided that I am going to do a buffalo check paint on my trays. I could not find my masking tape to save my life. I don't know where it is. It is somewhere in my craft room. I can't find it. So I'm using Scotch tape. So I apologize, because it makes it a little bit difficult for you to see. It was a little challenging for me to see even as I was doing it, but I made it work. I'm all about find a way or make a way. So I was using my Scotch tape, but I'm just using the same method that I'm sure you've seen a lot of other people use. I'm using a length of the tape to measure off in between the tape sections that I'm going to protect from paint. Again, I'm having a lot of trouble explaining what I'm talking about tonight, apparently, but hopefully you are understanding what I'm saying, especially with the visual. So, and I'm sure, again, that you've seen other people do this. So once I had that all taped off, and I promise I'm going to move on in just a second here. There we go. So once I had it all taped off, I came in with my Adirondack white chalk paint by Home Decor, and I am just going to give this all a good coat, and I'm being careful to get as close as I can to the edges without hitting the edges, because I wanted to keep the sides of the tray the wood tone. So then I came back in with a smaller brush and just made sure that I was able to get in at all of those edges, and I was just real careful. I did not tape up the edges. So, but here we go, revealing this first set of lines, and it came out so nice and crisp. This is so satisfying. So very happy with this. So once I had all of that peeled away and it was all dry, I came back in and I did my tape the same way, but in the opposite direction. And you can see my square is sitting there to my right, and I had used that to just help make sure that I was getting my tape lined up nice and square and perpendicular to the lines that were already there, because I want these to look like squares, like checks, not like diamonds. And if you're off, if you've got it at an angle, they're going to look more like diamond shapes rather than squares. So now I'm coming in with my crystal. It's crystal or crystalline? I can't remember, but it's a chalk paint as well. I believe this one is also by Home Decor, which is a Plaid product. So Home Decor and Waverly, they are both made by Plaid. I didn't even realize that until recently, but they are both Plaid products. They're just different brands within the Plaid family. So at any rate, I was using, I believe it's crystalline. But anyway, really pretty color. And then I came in with my Nantucket blue. And for my Nantucket blue, this is just being very, very careful to hand paint the squares on. So I still do have that tape down, which protected the white everywhere where I needed the white protected. And then I wasn't as careful with the crystalline because I knew that where it was hitting the white, I was going to be coming back in with this Nantucket blue. So hopefully that makes sense. So it's here with the Nantucket blue that I'm having to be real careful. So I have a nice small, flat, relatively stiff brush that I am using to do that. And again, at my little edges along the sides of the tray, I'm coming in with a tiny, tiny brush. So here we go. You ready? I was so excited when I started pulling this tape up. Look at how awesome this is, you guys. And I'm not one to really toot my own horn, but I can't tell you how proud I am of this particular project. This tray may be my favorite project that I have done since I started my YouTube channel. It's between this and my ship wheel. I don't know if I can beat the ship wheel. The ship wheel was really pretty up there for me, but this tray, I just love it. So this is them all done. And you can see that they do nest. So they are slightly different sizes. When it's all put together, it's hard to tell that the top one is smaller than the bottom one, but you can see here that they actually are. So I'm starting to screw in my first screw. So this is the third screw. So you need 3 screws and 3 of these wood poles or whatever you want to call them. So I screwed my screw into the bottom, and I'm screwing that into one of my wood lengths that has one of the other screws sticking out of it. And I did let that set overnight with the wood glue so that that screw is not coming out of the top of that pole, for lack of a better term. So now I just went into my stash and I grabbed out 5 little wood beads, and I wanted to have feet on this just to lift it up a little bit, and also so that little screw in the middle wasn't going to interfere with anything, because I do not have it countersunk, if you will. So I just used some wood glue on that, and of course I didn't wait for that to dry, so I recommend you wait for it to dry before you move on. I ended up having to put them back on again in a couple of places, but because I was moving this around and I was knocking them over anyway. Do as I say, not as I do, right? So now I am just screwing together the next section. So I had set the next tray on top of that screw. I used my second length of the pole, if you will, and now I'm screwing on, as you can see, the third tray. So you can just see how I just set it right down on the screw, turned it until it was on there. And now I'm ready to take this, but then I realized I really want to do something with the top of my, what do you even call this, you guys? Pole? Post? Stick? I don't know. So I am taking from the Dollar Tree one of these shower curtain rings, and I am going to find a drill bit that matches the little knobby thing at the end that like hooks into the other part of the ring to like close the ring. I don't know if I don't know if I'm making any sense, but hopefully you'll, again, understand what I'm saying as I go here. So I'm drilling a hole through the top of my top stick, right? And so I'm finding that that little knobby thing goes right into the hole, and it's perfect, and it's holding the one side in place, but there isn't anything to hold it in place on the other side. So I am going to remove that little knobby thing from another one of these rings. So I scored it, and now I'm just using my needle nose pliers, and I broke it off. So I'm taking that and I'm tucking it in where the other one would normally latch it. So is this making sense? I hope this is making sense. And I'm just gonna hot glue that in place. So now I have a little knobby thing on both sides of the ring that they can now fit into my stick, right? Are you getting what I'm trying to explain? Because I know I'm not making a lot of sense, but at any rate, I decided I wanted it painted. Magically, it is now that Nantucket blue color. And now I'm gonna just go ahead and screw that onto the top of my tray. And there you go. I love this so, so much. Please let me know what you think in the comments. DIY number 2. For this project, I am using a mini little broom that I got from the Dollar Tree, as well as some really pretty Dollar Tree picks. And this little broom was scented with cinnamon. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, this will be perfect for my minis. So I don't know if you saw one of my videos in the fall where I did a door hanger, but I can link that video in my description box for you if you're interested in seeing a full-size version of this. But I came in, you all know I love to cut apart all of my picks. So I cut my picks down to individual pieces, and then I tucked them into the little broom handle or broom, whatever you want to call this. So I'm actually not securing anything right now. I'm just tucking everything in. I do want to come back in and will come back in with hot glue, but right now I like to lay out my pieces first to see how I like them in position before I commit. So now I'm coming in with a pick from Walmart actually, and I pulled off all of the little pieces. I think this is baby's breath, but I couldn't swear to it. But decided those little stems were a little bit too long as they were, so I did go ahead and trim those off. And then I was just tucking in the little pretty white flowers here and there throughout my little arrangement, if you will. Just making sure that it was pretty to my eye. And you can use any kind of flowers for this, right? I just liked these little tiny blossoms because I was doing a mini project here. So coming back in with my hot glue, and I'm going to secure everything, making sure that everything is where it needs to be or where I want it to be, and then just making sure that everything is tucked away and secured with the hot glue. I even came in a little bit on the back and made sure that everything was secure because some of those little pieces did stick through to the back. So now I'm coming in with some Dollar Tree ribbon. I have two ribbons. One is a lace ribbon. Actually, they're both lace ribbons, but one is more of like a crocheted lace ribbon, and then the other is what you would think of as a regular lace ribbon in a pretty lavender color. And I was just wrapping it around my fingers a couple of times because I'm just planning on doing a simple bow. I was struggling with getting it to look the way I wanted it to. So I had wrapped it up around a few times, and I was thinking I wanted the ribbons layered like this, but then I just wasn't really liking the way that it was looking. It wasn't what I had pictured in my head. So I finally pulled them apart and did them separately. And I'm just wrapping them in loops that are kind of at an angle to each other, right? So just looping it around, but staggering them. And I did that with both pieces. And then I'm just going to layer them on top of each other. And this is what made me happy. So then I took another piece of the crocheted ribbon and just wrapped that around the center of my bow, tied that off with just a simple knot. And then I went ahead and secured the bow to the top of my piece. And then you have a little mini door hanger, just a cute little piece to decorate your tray or a small area of your wall if you prefer. DIY number 3. So for this, I have my Rust-Oleum Metallic Gold paint. I also have my Waverly chalk paint in fern and moss. And this is a pack of wooden beads that I had gotten on Amazon. The link is available in my Amazon store, which you can find in my description box. And I pulled out 3 different sizes of beads, and I am just arranging them in the pattern that I think I want to use. Now I threaded them all onto some skewers, and I'm using a box to just use my spray paint, just really lightly spurting it, if you will, to make sure that I'm covering the beads. And I was loving this gold spray paint. At first I thought maybe it was going to be a little bit too gaudy, but it was actually gorgeous. So highly recommend that one. Now I am coming in and using the fern on some of my mid-sized beads, and then I used the moss on the smallest beads. I actually divided my smallest beads into 2 groups and left half of them natural. So here are all my painted beads. Once they were done drying, I went ahead and pulled them all off of the skewers and pulled them off of the skewers. And now I'm coming in with some baker's twine that I had picked up from the Dollar Tree. This is like 50, I can't remember if it was 50, I think it was 500 feet. I can't remember I think it was 500 feet. So a really good amount of baker's twine for $1. But it was a really pretty spring green color. And I went ahead and threaded it onto a large needle. I guess this is maybe an embroidery needle. I'm not certain. But going ahead and stringing on my beads in the pattern that I wanted to create. Now you can do whatever you want with this. You can make your own pattern with your whatever size beads you want. You can make them all the same size. You can use different sizes. You could use, just 2 colors, 1 color. The sky's the limit. So whatever your imagination wants to take you, wherever your imagination, oh my goodness, I can't talk. This is all up to your imagination. Let's put it that way. So once I had all of the beads threaded, I went ahead and tied them off on either end, just with a little simple knot to make sure that they wouldn't go anywhere. And then I decided I was going to create some tassels. So I am going to link Anika from Craft, Eat, and Repeat, her channel. She has a video where she shows how to make these tassels. This is where I learned how to do this particular type. I've never made a tassel before, but I saw her video and I thought this was ingenious because it just, I don't know, it's simple. Maybe it's the simple things that just made me happy. I don't know. But basically I had wrapped it around my hand about 30 times. I tied it off really tightly at the top, and then you saw me cut the strands in the middle. This is where Anika's trick comes in. So I'm taking a new strand, and you can see the tail up at the top. I'm creating a loop at the bottom. So you have a tail, it's hard to see, but there's a tail up at the top right there, the loop at the bottom under my thumb, and I'm wrapping the baker's twine around that. And you can wrap this however many times you want, depending on how you want the top of your tassel to look. I think I wrapped it around about 8 times. Once I had that all wrapped around, and I'm doing this in regular speed so you guys can see this, I clipped that off. Now that end that I just clipped, that I'd been wrapping, that's the end I'm going to take and tuck through my loop. and then I'm going to hold down that little end, and then I'm going to pull the original tail that is attached to the loop and pull that through. And what that does is it hides your knot underneath everything you just wrapped, so you won't see a knot on the top surface. I thought that was genius. So thank you, Anika. So you can find a link to her video in my description box. So I'm going to do it again just to show you once more in case you want to see that again. So tied it off at the top, clipping the bottom, and then coming in with a new piece of the baker's twine. You can see my tail at the top, looping that down at the bottom, maybe. Once I've got my loop where I want it, I go ahead, maybe, and I'm going to wrap this around again. Yeah, see, we all struggle sometimes. All right, so wrapping. And once I have that wrapped again about 8 times, again, you can just wrap it however many times you want to get the look that you're going for. So I wrapped it around a bunch of times and then trimmed that off. Took that end that I was wrapping, tucked it through my loop, just pulled that through, held on to that, and then I found my tail from the original loop that I created and pulled it tight. And then you can just trim off really just the top end. The bottom end really gets melded in with the rest of the tassel. And I'm just giving them a little bit of a haircut, making sure that everything is nice and even and that my tassels are the same size. And then I took my little needle again and I threaded on one of the ends of my tassel and used my needle to go in between those 2 threads that were through the beads, just so that I could attach it properly to the end. And then I tied off a cute little bow with all of the little ends that were kind of hanging out there from having put my garland together. You could certainly trim all of that off. I just decided I wanted to create little bows because I thought it was cute. I am loving this. Let me know what you think. DIY number 4. For this project, I'm using a little birdhouse from a Dollar Tree. I loved that this had the little heart cut out for the little birdie. Super cute. I'm also excited that I found this sandpaper at the Dollar Tree. It was something like 40 sheets of sandpaper in all different levels of grit. And so I sanded down the rough edges and coming in with my home decor chalk paint, giving everything a really good 2 coats. I did decide I wanted my roof to be a little bit different, so I wanted to go ahead and paint that red, which I did. Just kind of speeding through this painting here. This is a really cute and quick DIY. Touched it up in places, and now I'm coming in with some scrap foam core board, and I'm going to sandwich 3 pieces of this together. Reason being, I'm looking to put my little birdhouse up on a little post, and I need some way to secure the post. So I'm sandwiching with hot glue these 3 little squares, and then I'm going to create a hole in the middle of it in a little bit. First of all, I decided that I wanted to cover the edges, make them look pretty, so I have this red ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and it's got a little bit of a gold shimmer to it. It's actually really pretty. So I'm applying that all the way around the edge. Once I cut it off, tuck that end under just to make sure that it's finished. And then I'll just have this seam face towards the back of my birdhouse, even though it won't really even be noticeable. So this is a dowel, also from the Dollar Tree. I think they come in a pack of 8 or 10, but they're 12-inch dowels. And I just gave that a coat of white paint. I didn't paint it all the way down to the end. You can see it kind of sitting there on the side because I knew I'm going to be cutting that off. I don't want it that full 12-inch length. So I was using my little embossing tool and then a paintbrush stick, just trying to get the hole the size that I wanted it. And then I went ahead and placed my dowel in that hole, hot glued it to the bottom. And now I'm just trying to identify how long I want this. So cutting off about 5 inches, I would estimate. And then I have this cute little flower pot that I had used back in Halloween time for another DIY. So I swiped that and I'm just filling in with reindeer moss. Is that cute? So now I have my little Dollar Tree bird, and I decided I wanted it to be white like a dove. So I'm going to just go ahead and coat him with a single coat of the white chalk paint as well. And I think he turned out really cute, almost a light gray. DIY number 5. So I have a bunch of picks from the Dollar Tree. These are some things that Kim picked up for me. Very excited. And then I was also showing you this little, it looks like a double shot glass to me, but the Dollar Tree says it's a dessert cup. I think it came in a pack of 6, if I'm not mistaken. So I am taking one of them. I started to pull my black chalk paint and then I decided on my Java. So this is Java by Home Decor. I just gave that one good coat of paint. And now I'm taking my little pumpkin. This is one of my larger pumpkin picks. And I cut down the little skewer a little bit, and then you saw me just pull off the stem. Now I'm using one of these other wired pumpkins. I pulled the stem off of that. Started to cut that wire. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna ruin my scissors. Let's use my wire cutter. And I decided I wanted to make this little guy a different color. So I grabbed my plaster chalk paint by Waverly, and I gave it 2 coats of paint. Cut my little wire down a little bit more, and I'm sticking my little pumpkins together. So I just jammed that wire into where the stem had been originally. So easy peasy. Then I'm taking my smaller little pumpkin and I'm going to cut that stem down, not the stem, the pick part. I'm sticking that in again where the stem had been for the other pumpkin. So we're just making a cute little mini pumpkin topiary. I love this. So I've got a little tiny piece of floral foam from my stash. You know when you've got tiny pieces of stuff, you guys, save them for your minis because you never know what you're going to need. And then I am going to come in with some of my floral picks. I'm pulling them apart. They're kind of sticking up funny, and I've got to solve for that in a second. But I'm just trying to get a feel for whether these are even a little too large. I'm playing around with them, trying to decide which pieces I want to use. I really love these mini mums. I think they are so cute. And then I don't know what this other little flower is called, but it again is from the Dollar Tree. And you can see I'm trying to manipulate them, and I was having a little bit of a challenge with it, but never fear, because we figure it out, and I'll show you exactly what I did so that you struggle a little bit less than you see me doing with this project. So I did go ahead and try and tuck my pumpkin down on my stack of pumpkins, I should say, down on here in a second. Yeah, because I wanted to see just dimensionally, is that the word I want? I wanted to see whether it was just too big, and I decided, yeah, it really was. So see that little squiggly thing coming out of there? I decided I really like those little tendril things. Here's my fix. So I've got my my heat gun, and they are so, they're plastic, right? And there are no wires in there. So the heat gun melts them just enough, and you got to be careful not to melt them too much, because you'll melt them to the point that they just like come apart, like they break wherever you're trying to melt them and bend them. But if you heat them up just enough, you can bend them in the direction that you want them to go, and as they cool, they will stay that way, right? So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just getting them all kind of to relax down and kind of flow over the edge of our little topiary pot, for lack of a better term. Then you saw I just pulled the greenery off of those little yellow flowers, and I stuck my pumpkin stem right down through there, so they had a little base of greenery that's going to serve them well in a minute. Taking some floral moss. I've been making such a mess with the moss lately, you guys, but glued that down inside. And now I am going to start gluing in some of these flowers. I just found that it was easier to try to get the flowers in them and in there and glue them down before I put the pumpkins on. I had tried to put the pumpkins on and tried to see if I could tuck flowers in underneath it, and it just wasn't serving me well. I couldn't get the flowers to lay the way that I wanted them, and I did end up like here needing to use my heat gun some more to get them to relax and kind of flop over rather than stick straight up. And then every once in a while you'll see me, like I just did, testing my pumpkin and trying to see if it's to the point that I want it or if I need to add in some more florals. So I just continued along that path until I got it to where I wanted it. And just used my hot glue gun. Now the hot glue, you do need to be careful with that also, especially on some of these that have more delicate stems, because it will also melt those little stems. So just be aware of that. So now I'm happy with it. Oop, my little greenery fell off, but I had stuck some hot glue down in there, and now I'm tucking my pumpkin down in. So now it's where I want it pretty much. It did actually go in and put in one more flower. Used my little hot glue to assist me in getting it to where I, oh, nope, heat gun. I was wrong. I thought I went in with my, my hot glue, but I used the heat gun again. So now I am using my gold marker from the Dollar Tree. If I had it to do again, I would have done this first. I don't know why I didn't do it first, because I did have every intention of doing this all along. So just make things easier for yourself and do your design before you put your florals and your pumpkin in. Obviously I have these in nice and secure, you can see, because I'm turning it sideways and it's not falling off. But I essentially, and I know it's hard to see right now, but I essentially did a squiggly line around the middle. You can see it a little bit better there. And then I put little leaves all along it. And now at the bottom, I'm just doing just a little stripe along the very bottom edge to give it a little bit more, I don't know, interest. And then I did go back and I gave my little vine with leaves another coat just to make it a little bit more visible. So you can see me doing that now. But you can put whatever design on here you want, and you can use whatever colors you want. Use your imagination and make it your own, and I would love to see what you make. So here it is, super cute. Let me know what you think. DIY number 6. So I have a bunch of these ornaments from the Dollar Tree that I picked up last year. I've got 3 different sizes and I'm going to be using one of each. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the little nubby thing that holds the ornament hanger, if you will. And I'm using my hot glue. I showed you I have a little teeny wood round that's out of my stash from a set of wood pieces that I'd gotten from the Dollar Tree. And just using hot glue to secure the largest ball to the wood round, the next size ball to the large one, and then the smallest one is going to go on top. You're probably already guessing what it is that I'm making here, but I'm using my Home Decor Adirondack white chalk paint to give that a really good coat of paint. And now I am using my green cotton yarn. This is also from the Dollar Tree. And I cut off about 9 strands of yarn, not about, it was 9 strands. So I tied a knot in that. I went ahead and braided it, and now I am fraying the ends of the yarn. I had tied it off on both ends and just creating a little tiny scarf here. So once I had that all frayed, I trimmed off both ends, and there is our cute little scarf. Just a very simple braid, so nothing fancy there. So now I have this red felt that I'd gotten from Arteza. It's adhesive felt, and I had just grabbed one of my bottles of paint that was about the right size for the circle that I wanted to cut. Used that as a pattern, cut it out. Now I'm looking to create the next part of the little hat that I'm making. So I've got the brim was that large circle, and now I am making the top part of the hat, and I feel like somebody at some point shared with me what that is called. I can't remember. So at any rate, I am going to go ahead and apply that, and then I am going to flip it over and get an approximate size for the top of the hat to close it off with another piece of felt. So this is a very basic, very simple way of doing this. As you can see, I'm pulling off the backing from the felt to stick that on there. And then I went into my stash of all my little mini jingle bells and I pulled out a few green ones. You'll be seeing me using these jingle bells on another project later on, but just using some hot glue to add a few little jingle bells to our snowman's hat for a little bit of interest. So now I have from my stash again, this is also from the Dollar Tree. They are little twig-like things. I don't know, it's a pick of twigs with little snowflakes all over it. So I am using my craft knife here to just slice some slits in the hat so that it will conform to his little head a little bit more. And then I peeled away some of that backing, but not all of it, because I don't want stuff to get stuck up underneath his hat. So just enough to get it to stick to his little head. And now applying his arms with hot glue and just adding a little bit more hot glue so that it's nice and secure. And then I have some more fake snow from the Dollar Tree in my stash. And I'm sorry, I'm a little off camera here, but I'm just sprinkling some of that into the hot glue to camouflage the hot glue with a little bit of extra snow. And you'll be seeing me use that fake snow in another project a little bit later as well. So now just taking his little scarf and tying it around his neck, and he's already so cute. I love snowmen. What is your favorite thing to decorate with during the winter season? Mine is snowmen. I absolutely love snowmen. So I'm just using my Arteza acrylic paint markers to create his little face and his buttons, and doing his nose in the orange acrylic paint marker. And that's it. He is so sweet. I love him, and I hope you love him too. DIY number 7. For this project, I am using a little clay pot that I had already painted white for a different project. I've also got a foam ball from the Dollar Tree that I am Mod Podging for the moment. I also have some garden moss that I'm now trying to apply. It wasn't happening with the Mod Podge, you guys. I tried cutting it up, as you can see, and rolling it around. It just didn't want to stick with the Mod Podge. I was afraid to use the hot glue at first because I thought I was just going to melt the foam ball, but ultimately, as you see, that's what I ended up doing, and that worked actually really well. So recommend the hot glue. Just I would use it sparingly at first because it will, if it's too hot, melt that foam ball. I did end up giving it a little bit of a haircut and got it on my little skewer, trimmed that down to be the height that I wanted. And then I'm coming in with some pip berries that I believe I got these from Michael's. I couldn't swear to it. I'm pretty sure it was Michael's that I got them from back last fall. And I'm just wrapping my little piece around and tucking that in at the top. And then I decided I wanted some of my pip berries to have a little bit of color. So I'm using one of my Arteza paint markers to come in and just paint one of them purple. Or not one of them, but a few of them here and there. Using some more moss in the base of my little pot so that it covers up the foam that I had down inside of there. And then I decided my pot was just too plain and white, so I was so excited that I had found these rub-on transfers at the Dollar Tree, so I'm cutting out just a few of these to decorate my little white pot. So I'm just placing them and rubbing them on, and then I just went around the pot and placed them where it made me happy. You can do just one, you can go all the way around the pot, again, whatever makes your heart happy. But I love this cute little piece. Let me know what you think. DIY number 8. So this was my inspiration for this first project. It's something I saw on Pinterest. And I'm starting out with this box from Michael's. It was originally 99 cents and my sister had picked it up for me when it was, I think, 20% off. So really great deal. And then I've got some scrapbook paper that you can see I had measured to fit, and I'm putting it on the bottom of the box with some Mod Podge. My friends at Plaid sent me that Mod Podge and a whole bunch of paints that I'll be using today. So very excited about that. So now I have a piece of foam core that I'm going to be measuring down, or cutting down I should say, but first I have a little decal that I created on my Silhouette Cameo, and I am just weeding that out, and of course it just says beach. Just a fun color, and yeah, just happy colors. So I am using my Arteza self-healing mat and my little Dollar Tree square to trim down the foam core board, this scrap piece of foam core board that I had from another project, and just cutting it down to the size that I want. I believe that box is 4x6, and so I had cut the foam core down to, I want to say it was about 3x2.5. I could be off there a little bit, but essentially you just want to make sure that you are giving yourself the amount of border that you want and that's pleasing to your eye. So I had applied my beach decal, and now I'm using some more Mod Podge to secure this down on top of the scrapbook paper. And I did not paint the foam core board. I just left it as is. I liked that nice bright white. And so I'm attaching this here, and then I am going to come in with my jute cord from Walmart and just apply that around the edge of the foam core board so it's got a nice finished edge. And then when I get back around to the bottom where I started, I'm going to trim that off and seal that down with my hot glue. Then I'm going to take a little piece. I'm just going to tie a knot. I decided I didn't want a bow here. I just want like a little knot. So cut that down, and I'm going to secure that right at that seam. And there you are. Such a simple, fun project. I have a lot more simple, fun, fast projects for you today. Let me know what you think of this. DIY number 9. All right, for this project, I am using one of these foam rounds from the Dollar Tree. There were 2 in a pack, and I am just going to cut this down. Now, my sweet friend Teresa B from Teresa B DIY is participating in this playlist today, and she had mentioned to me that she was going to be doing a watermelon theme, and I was like, oh, I had planned on doing watermelons for mine too. But so I had this one project I still wanted to do, and I felt like I shouldn't be doing watermelons because Teresa is doing that, but I'm hoping that she will forgive me in this one particular watermelon project because I really wanted to make it. I'd been thinking about it for a while. So here goes with watermelons. But I started out with acrylic paint by Folk Art, and it was a little too thick for what I was trying to do, and so I ended up moving on to chalk paint. And so as you can see, I am just creating that little white rind area, and I'm coming in with some green. This is the Fern chalk paint by Home Decor, and then I'm just blending it in with some of that white. So if you think about a watermelon, once it's sliced, you've got that green, and it kind of goes, it doesn't go right to white. It blends a little bit like with the color. It's like a light green, and then it goes more to white, and then it goes to pink, and then it goes to your red, right? So that's essentially the effect that I am trying to create here. So now I am coming in with Flag Red by Folk Art, and this one is an acrylic paint. So I had used the white chalk paint, the green chalk paint, but now I am using an acrylic paint for my red. And for whatever reason, I don't know if the white paint that I was using might be a few years old from my stash. It's very possible that I grabbed the old one and not the new one that Plaid had sent me. And that might be why my white was as thick as it was, because the red was actually a really nice consistency for this. So coming in and doing my rind, and then I just blend in that white, and then I also added a little bit of white along the rind just to give it a little bit more interest. So that's why I'm kind of showing you this again, because I wanted to show you how I had done the watermelon rind. So you can see that in just a second, perhaps. I guess I'm just going to keep on blending. So, oh, there we go. So you can see I'm just using a little bit of the white paint and blending that in. And if you get too much, just paint over it again with whatever color you're trying to cover with. So now I'm coming in with some black folk art acrylic paint, and I'm making my little watermelon seeds, and I think that these are just so cute. So while those are drying, I decided I was going to make a little bin for my watermelons. So I started out with my Adirondack white chalk paint again and gave it a really good coat, and then I am sanding down the edges. I just wanted to stress it a little bit. I'm adding a watermelon decal that I had cut with my cameo, my silhouette cameo. And here is where I made my mistake. I did not seal it. I didn't go back over it with white chalk paint the way that I normally would. I just figured that this Arteza acrylic paint marker would work well. And actually it looked like it was doing a beautiful job as I was doing it. It did not appear to be like doing anything out of the ordinary. And I don't know if it's because I just didn't seal it or if it's the texture on this box or what, but I had bleeding everywhere. So word to the wise, if you're gonna do something like this, seal it up either with the same paint color that you used as your base or with some Mod Podge. And that should alleviate any bleeds, because this was bleeding. So I decided I was going to distress it too. So I'm like, all right, you know, we'll just go with it. So I don't know. So this little bin might be a fail, you guys. At this point, I was running out of time and patience, quite honestly. And I said, you know what? This might just have to get redone sometime soon, but I don't know. There's some charm to it, I suppose. So I went ahead and I added this, oh my goodness, I know what this is, Excelsior. It's like fancy grass made from wood strips, I think. But here it is with all of my little watermelon pieces dropped in. Let me know what you think. DIY number 10. For this project, I am using my, let's see if I can remember, manila rope. I always want to call it Milan. It's manila rope. And I had gotten this in a big spool off of Amazon. I believe I have a link for it in my description box. And this is something that's called a monkey fist. It's a special knot that you can tie. And the instructions that I had said to wrap it 3 times. And so it's 3 times around, and then 3 times the opposite way around those loops. Then 3 times through the original loops around the second set of loops. Hopefully you're understanding by watching what I'm doing. So, and then they recommend putting a ball inside of there and pulling it tight. Now, when I used the 3 loop method, if you will, I found that I was able to still see a lot of that tennis ball in there. So as I was tightening it. And this is not a difficult knot to do. I would say it just takes a little patience when it comes time to tighten it, especially if you're using a rope like this that kind of catches on itself. It doesn't slide real easily. But you can see as I'm getting it tight, I'm like, there's not enough coverage here. So I took it all apart and I decided I was going to do 5 loops instead. So you can see I'm wrapping it around my hand 5 times, and this is loosely around my hand. I'm making sure I'm keeping it loose. Now I'm going to take it around the middle, so wrapping it 5 times around, and I'm trying to keep all of the rope lined up as I do this. So now once I have my 5, I'm going to take the end of it and loop it through the bottom loop and then up through the top loop. but around the second set of loops that I had created. I hope this is making sense, and I hope you can tell from what I'm doing here. But I will leave a link to the instructions that I used in the description box. So if this is something you'd like to create yourself, it's basically pictures with arrows and directions on how to do it. And hopefully between that and what you can see me doing here, you'll get it pretty easily, I hope. If I can do it, you can do it. So I went ahead and kept on keeping on, getting my loops all set. Hopefully you can see now a little bit easier what I'm talking about going in through those loops and around the other. So hopefully this is making a little bit more sense now that it's starting to take shape a little bit. So once you get it there, you're going to pop your ball in. And it doesn't have to be a tennis ball. I just happen to have a lot of tennis balls around because my pup Sammy just loves to play catch. And so my dad sent me all of his old tennis balls. So I had an extra one that I could pop in there. And so then I went to work at just tightening it up, and I was just continuing to pull those ropes around or push them through. And it's kind of a push and pull and just following the whole line of rope to get it tightened. Again, if you have a smoother rope that you're working with, this probably would tighten up a little bit easier. Now, as I was doing it, I pulled one loop free, and I decided I kind of liked the way that looked, having like a handle on it that wasn't tied in a knot. So I went with that, so you can see that loop sticking out there, and then I trimmed off the ends and just tucked them in so that you can't even really see where it starts and where it ends. And this is my monkey knot, or my monkey fist, and I love this. I was so happy with myself. But leave me a comment and let me know what you think. DIY number 11. For this project, I have a mason jar. I've got some Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree. I'm showing you more of my little jingle bells, and then some fake snow and my little star ornaments also from the Dollar Tree. So I am just taking the larger of these two little Christmas trees and making sure that it's going to fit inside my mason jar. I'm going to glue my tree to the inside of the lid, and as you can see, I'm working with this all upside down. I'm going to take one of my little stars, and I am pulling off the little holder thingy, or the little hanger part, so that it's just the star, and I'm going to use some hot glue and secure that to the top of my little tree. And then I'm going to be taking my little jingle bells. I'm going to decorate the tree with some of the jingle bells. So I know it's really hard to see here on the video, but I'm actually hanging the little bells on the little bristles of the tree. So there's like a little hanger place, I guess you could say, for the jingle bells, and I'm using that and tucking it in on the little bristles, and then I'm coming in with some hot glue. Hopefully you can see a little bit better there what I'm doing, but then coming in with a little bit of hot glue just to make sure that it stays put on the little bristles. So you can see there how I just kind of slid it right onto the bristle, and then I glued it down. And so once I had that all done, I'm taking some of my artificial snow and I'm pouring it into the glass portion of my mason jar, right? So the jar itself. I'm just going to flip my tree upside down. That's why I needed to glue it to the inside of the lid, right? And then secure that, turn it right side up, and shake all my snow down. So cute. DIY number 12. So this is my inspiration. If you've been watching me lately, you know I've kind of gone a little garland crazy. But I found these beads already painted on Amazon, and I fell in love with them, and I had to have them. And here, I don't know why I am counting them. I'm like, how many beads are in each of these? It's 40. If I had looked at the box, it's a 160-piece set. There are 40 of each. Yeah, 4, is that right? No, 100 and, oh my goodness, I can't do math. 40 times 4, yes, 160, I was right. So I'm starting out with my beads. I always like to start with 3 of one color on either end of my garland. Don't know why, I just kind of like to have it start and stop that way. So that was what I did, and then I started with a pattern. So the pattern that I was doing is, obviously I was trying to go light to a little bit darker to the darkest and then back again. And I just was looking at this and I really wasn't thrilled with the way that it was looking. It wasn't what I had in mind. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I'm not liking this. So I took it apart and I started over and realized I probably could have left those first 3 beads on there, but I just went ahead and started again. So now I'm alternating the colors with the white and the natural tones, and I was much happier with this version of the pattern. So again, you know, this sort of thing, you can create it however you'd like and however is pleasing to your eye. So now I am looking for a shell. I didn't have a sand dollar like the inspiration picture. I thought about using a starfish, but the ones that I have are much too large. And so I really loved this seashell, and there was little kind of a edge to it that I thought maybe I could catch with my twine. It wasn't having it. So eventually I settled for one of these, I think they're scallop shells. And once I settled on the scallop shell that I was going to use, I went ahead and wrapped my twine around the base of it. And yeah, I wasn't going to settle for that one apparently. So I went through and I dug out a bunch of them, and I finally settled on one that was a little bit larger and a little bit more neutral. So went ahead and wrapped all my twine around the little base of the shell, and then I tied it off so that it was nice and secure. And then I was able to just slide my beads down to the base of the little shell and slid all of my beads all the way down so that everything was nice and tight on my garland. Then I went ahead and I left a little bit of a tail. And now I am trying to figure out how to do my tassel, and here I am with my little sweet tarts box. So hey, whatever works, right? It was about the right size. I did have a continuation in that twine. There was like a knot where the twine like ended and then started again, so I just cut that out at a spot that I knew I was going to be clipping anyway on my tassel. Hopefully that makes sense. So then I just started it again. I do not know how many times I went around. I think it was probably about 30. But then I took another piece of twine, slid it in underneath all of the strands and tied it nice and tight at the top. Took it off my box, and now I am lining it all up so that I can go ahead and finish my tassel. Now I forgot to tuck in those little strands at the top here, and then I remembered after I started, so I'm like, oops, I need to do that. So I tucked them down, that way I don't have anything sticking up and out on my tassel. Just wrap that around probably 8 or 10 times. And I'm using that little method that I've done in the past where I had left a loop, so I'm tucking my end through the loop and then I'm able to pull it tight. Now, if you are not familiar with tassels and this method that I learned from Anika at Craft, Eat, Repeat, I will leave the link to the video where I go through it in my description box. So I am just using my embroidery needle to help thread the tassel onto the end of my garland and tying that off. And then I'm going to take my needle and run it up through the first 4 or so beads so that I can tuck that away in there and that nobody will see the end that was tied. And that's it. I love this garland. Let me know what you think. DIY number 13. So for this project, I have this other little cutout from the Dollar Tree. It came in that same pack as my little ship's wheel, and I've given it a coat of the mineral chalk paint as well. And now I'm coming in with some of my apple barrel colors that Plaid has sent me. I have a red, and then I have this brushed metal color that I came across in my little stash that they had sent me. And what I really wanted to do is try to come up with a rust color, and I don't have, so I know Holly from Hot Humble Pie is always talking about burnt umber, and I do not have the burnt umber, so I figured I was going to just try and figure out another way for this to look like metal. So I had started with the mineral. I'm now adding on the brushed metal, and I'm kind of mixing it with the mineral because the mineral wasn't entirely dry at this point. So now I am taking some of my red and trying to mix it in with the brushed metal, and it was turning more pink on me. So I went ahead and grabbed out my black, and I'm going to add a teeny tiny bit of black and trying to see if that might tone down the pink and bring it more to a rust color. It still wasn't doing what I wanted, so I went ahead and I grabbed some orange that they had also sent me, and I'm going to add a little bit of orange to that, and eventually I do get it to what I think of as a nice kind of rusty brownish color. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to focus mainly on the edges of our little anchor here, but really pretty much putting this rusty color anywhere I think you might see rust on an anchor. And you know, anchors spend a lot of time in the salt water or in the regular water, I guess if you have a freshwater boat, and they get rusty. So I'm just kind of hitting it up pretty liberally. I'm sorry, my hand is right in the way. I'm going to show you a little bit better in just a second. But just going over it until I get it to a place that is pleasing to my eye, as I always say. So this is just a way for you to be creative and make something your own, and yeah, so do it the way that you like. And now I am going to go ahead and take some twine, and I'm going to go ahead and knot this up at the top, and then I continued to knot the shorter strand around the long strand, if you will, because I just wanted to kind of make like a chain type of look, I guess, to it. So here I'm just figuring out my initial knot, the way that I wanted it secured on there, and then I'm just going to tie a few more knots up that length of twine, if you will. And while I'm doing that, I just want to say thank you to all of my wonderful subscribers and all of the love and support you guys have continued to bestow upon me, all of the comments, and I am so sorry that I have been behind on responding to all of you, but I do want to assure you that I appreciate every single comment, and I do read them. I've just been so busy lately with everything in that's going on in my world, and so thank you for your patience with me as I get through the comments, and I hope you'll forgive my tardiness, but thank you again so much for the support. I really do appreciate you. But let me know what you think of this cute little anchor. DIY number 14. For this project, I have yet again a Dollar Tree piece. You Are My Person. Now, this one, I started sanding off all of the glitter because I had it in my head that I wanted my design to be on that side, just the way that the heart was laying. And then I was like, well, I also could make this two-sided. Ultimately, I only made it single-sided, but yeah. So I'm sanding and sanding and sanding. And eventually I discovered that this actually isn't even painted on. It's a piece of paper that is glued on to the surface of the MDF or wood or whatever it is. So I start peeling the paper off, and then I was like going at it with a baby wipe, trying to, it was a big mess. So anyway, I finally got it to where I needed it, and now I'm taking my home decor chalk paint. I think it's called Vintage Victorian. It's just a nice little pink. And now I have my Arteza chalk paint markers. It's a set of 42 here. You can see they sent me extra tips. Well, not me, it comes in the package, but I am so excited for these, you guys. So I picked out magenta, and I'm going to be using these. And then, oh yeah, I discovered that they had all these cute little labels in there. So the whole set of chalk paint markers, but then all these cute little black labels that you can use for all different things. They're different shapes and sizes. There are a whole bunch of them in there, and then also some stencils. So I just thought that that was so cute and really great. So I'm looking forward to using these some more. But for now, I'm just getting my ink started. So when you start one of the Arteza paint markers, you just have to get the paint going into the tip. That's just how it is. And now you can see me flipping the tip around because I want to use the fine point. Here's another thing, do as I say, not as I do. When you go to put your lid back on, make sure you flip your point back in, because the lids are set to fit on the blunt side of the tip, not on the pointy side of the tip. The pointy side sticks out too far and you'll damage your tip. Probably why they send you extra tips, because I'm sure I'm not the only person who forgets and tries to put the lid back on while the little pointy tip is out. But anyway, I was using my Arteza Architect's ruler to just give myself a guide. I wasn't going all the way down to that line, if you will, but I wanted to be able to visualize what a straight line looked like when I was doing this. I'm just creating a giant version of the little conversation hearts that they have out at Valentine's Day. I just thought this would be really cute, and you totally could do a different saying on the back, especially if you're going to be putting this on a tiered tray. So you know, it's got two different sayings on the little sign. So once I had my word written out, I came back in and I just thickened up all of those lines so they were nice and bold. And then I decided I was going to fancy it up a little bit. So this is my Arteza glitter in raspberry, it was called, and I've got a little bit of gloss Mod Podge that I'm pouring into my little container here and adding some glitter. I was wishing I had thought of this when I do another project later on that was actually recorded first. I was like, why didn't I think of this before? Because I made kind of a mess with the other project. But I'm just essentially making my own glitter glue here, right? And it is glitter glue that is a custom shade because I got to decide what it was going to look like. So with a very fine brush, I am just coming in and tracing over all of my letters. And the raspberry glitter that I had chosen was almost essentially the same color as the magenta chalk paint that I had put on here. And I hadn't originally planned to do this, but when I was looking at it, I was like, it needs a little bit more oomph. So that was why I went ahead and did that. And now I'm just coming around and giving it a little bit more detail, just to make it fun and pretty. And there you have it. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of these projects so far. DIY number 15. So for this project, I have the base from a Dollar Tree paper towel holder and then a whole bunch of these evergreen ties that I've had in my stash from last Christmas season. And I'm just going to fold them all in half to get the center point, and I'm cutting them with my wire cutters. I am just going to then take them and at the halfway point bend them around the paper towel holder here and give them a good twist so they're on secure, and I am just going to do this all the way around the paper towel holder. And you can see we're actually building a really easy little evergreen wreath. And you can make this as full or as sparse as you choose. I chose to make this relatively full, and so every time I added one of these, I just slid it up behind the one in front of it and just made sure that they were all on there nice and secure. So now I have a bunch of these teeny little ornaments from the Dollar Tree as well, and I am just going to identify where I want to place them. I have silver in a couple of different styles, so like glittery and shiny and matte, and then gold that was glittery, and my red as well. So once I have them placed around where I want them, I'm just kind of trying to figure out how I want to attach them. And I decided against hot glue, so I pulled out my floral wire and I started to attach them through the part of the ornament that you use to hang them normally. And that was working fine, and you'll see I did that a few times, but then I just felt like they were sticking out too far off of the wreath, and I was trying to twist it, get it tighter in there, and eventually, and then I was just clipping off of the wire there. But after a little bit of doing that, I finally decided that I wanted to try doing it without the little hanger. So you can see here, I'm about to pull that off. I'm like, you know what? Let me try and attach it directly to the bulb. And it does have a little lip on there, which worked perfectly so that the wire doesn't slide off. So I just wrapped the wire around the little neck of the bulb itself and then attached it to the wreath. And that just gave me, the fit was a little bit more snug, and that made me a little bit happier. But here it is with all my little bulbs on there, and then I knew I wanted to put a ribbon on here, like a really pretty bow. So I pulled out my Kirkland ribbon. You guys have probably heard me talk about this before. I understand from one of my sweet subscribers that places like Sam's Club and BJ's also carry this type of ribbon. So obviously it's going to be their own brands, but definitely check out your wholesale clubs if you have one near you, because I will tell you, this 50-yard roll of ribbon was $6.99 at Costco, and I love it. I've got every single year I go back and get more of their ribbon, and they usually have new styles and textures and prints, and just so pretty. I love it so much, and it's such a great price. So I created my ribbon. I'm just tying it on here, and then I created a little loop with some of the excess ribbon, so I have a hanger. And there it is, just fluffing up my ribbon. And now this is a wreath that I had made with a little wreath hanger back in spring, and I'm going to use that for my wreath to be putting on my tiered tray in just a little bit. DIY number 16. So for this project, I have a piece of wood from a bag of wood pieces from the Dollar Tree and my white Adirondack home decor chalk paint. I'm just going to give this one really good coat of paint. When it's dry, I'm coming in with some more decals. Now, the reason I keep showing you all of these different decal projects, I wanted to try these out on various types of I want to say medium. So I did it on ceramic, I did it on a glass, and now I'm doing it on painted wood. Now, I did not know how it was going to work with the water on the chalk paint. So that is just something to keep in mind. I did not anticipate it going on as slick, and I was really not sure how the chalk paint was going to interact with the water. So it worked fine, but I would say that with this particular decal, I ended up having it look a little bit more rustic and distressed, which I was really okay with because we do a lot of farmhouse stuff on this channel, right? So it actually turned out pretty sweet. So that second decal, you can see probably because I put down a little bit extra water. I was a little hesitant when I put down our little squirrel, but when I saw that the chalk paint wasn't like bleeding or any of that, I put down a little bit of extra water on that second decal, and that worked a little bit better and didn't distress as much. But just know you can distress it if you'd like to, which I thought was kind of cool. So once I had everything completely dry, I came back in with my baker's twine in yellow. This is from the Dollar Tree. I just wrapped it around both sides, probably about 10 or 12 times, and then I just tied it off in the back and tucked my little tails under. So I did that on this side, and then I went ahead and I did it on the other side. And I'm sorry if you can hear little chains rattling. That is Sammy running around doing his thing. I don't know. So if you can hear that in the background, I apologize. But then I went ahead and pulled out some little wood beads from my stash. I am gluing them onto the back of my little sign because I wanted it to be able to stand up by itself. And I just left them natural. You can certainly paint them. I chose not to. I thought that they would be just as pretty, just left the way that they were. And that's it. DIY number 17. So I am using a little palette from the Dollar Tree. I've got these little Dollar Tree wood stickers, if you will, as well. And you can see I found an image on my phone that I thought maybe I would try to trace. And I've heard Holly from Hot Humble Pie talk about tracing images off of her computer screen. Yeah, with a touchscreen phone, it doesn't really work all that well. So I struggled with it a little bit, trying not to touch and move the image, and it just wasn't working. So I ended up having to just do it freehand. So I just kept that image up as an inspiration and then just tried to mimic it on my piece of paper that I was then going to use as a template. It did take me a few tries until I got it the way I wanted it, and so then I just set it aside, and I am now giving a heavy dry brush to my little palette with, again, my Adirondack white chalk paint from Home Decor. And I actually have a link for this in my description box if you are interested in trying to find that on Amazon. So now I've got my Arteza graphite paper. Couldn't think of the word there for a second. And I'm using my graphite paper to trace the image onto the little palette. And if you want to just find a printable online, you can certainly do that as well. But you can see it just transferred the image right over. And now I'm going to be using my Arteza acrylic paint marker to go over the image or the word, however you want to say it, that I had transferred onto the palette. And I do have a coupon code for you in the description box for Arteza if that's something that you have any interest in. I'm really liking their products, so definitely recommend them. So going over it fully with the red, and then I'm going to pull out one of the little hearts. I picked out this little pink one with the sparklies. I thought it was really pretty. And now I did want the color to be a little bit more intense on my sign, so I'm coming back in with a very fine paintbrush with my Arteza acrylic paint. This is an acrylic outdoor paint, and they've got some really gorgeous colors, and just very carefully and slowly taking my time and going over all of my letters there. So now this is a ribbon that I had picked up at Hobby Lobby a little while back, and I'd gotten this whole pack for like $3. It was all on clearance. And taking that little ribbon, hot gluing the end to the back of the sign, wrapping it around, hot gluing the end, and then I will do the same thing again at the bottom of the sign. Super cute. DIY number 18. This was my inspiration. This was from Pinterest again for this next project. And so I am using from the Dollar Tree this little cutout from last year. I had a pack, it was like 6 in the pack, and I had only used a few of them. So I have that little ship wheel, and then my little, I don't think that's a palette. What would you call that? But that's a little Dollar Tree thingy. I also have some wood beads, and I have my antique wax that I am going to apply now with a baby wipe. So it's my Waverly antique wax, using the baby wipe to just smear it on and remove the excess. And once I had the whole thing covered as best as I could, I did grab a little brush and got in between the spaces where I wasn't able to get with the baby wipe. So once that was all set, I took my twine, and I don't remember where I got this twine from. It might have been from Walmart or the Dollar Tree. I'm not really sure. It's been on my stash for a while. But I tied just a simple knot around one of those little braces, I'll call it, and I am threading on one of my wood beads. And I'm going to make sure both ends of my twine are through the bead, and then I'm just going to create a knot there that is large enough to keep the bead from moving. So I did go through and knot it a couple of times and just made sure that my bead was secure. And then I'm going to thread on another bead and tie the other end to the other side of that brace, if you will. I don't know what else to call it other than a brace. It's the piece of wood that is keeping the rest of the little slats together at the back. So then I threaded the twine back up through the bead, and I am knotting all of that off on that side as well, just to make sure everything is nice and secure. And then I'll go ahead and trim off my ends, and I'll do the same exact thing with the other side, so the bottom part, if you will. So tying that off, and I'm just going to speed right through this. So once I had all that set, I am ready to apply my little ship's wheel. I'm trying to decide how I want to have it arranged on here. And then I figured out exactly where the glue would need to go, and I did just use my hot glue for this. If you want a better long-term bond, the wood glue would work really well, or even like 6000, I think, works on glue as well. Now I'm coming in with mineral chalk paint, and I was loving how this turned out. It's really hard, I think, to see on camera, but it really gave it that nice weathered, aged look, and I just loved it. So here I am admiring it, and yes. So let me know what you think of this cute little piece. DIY number 19. So I have these paint stick pieces that were in my stash that I've kept from other projects, and I've got my home decor black chalk paint. I'm going to give all of these a good coat of my black paint, and then I'm going to set them aside to dry. Once they were dry, I decided I was going to try to use my Arteza paint marker to draw on these little eyes, and I wasn't quite getting the shape that I wanted by doing it by hand, and it wasn't as solid a white as I had hoped. And it's because I'm trying to put it on top of the black. So I came in with my home decor chalk paint in white Adirondack or Adirondack white, and was trying to go over it, and I just wasn't happy with the way that I was doing it. So I came in with a baby wipe and just wiped it all off and cleaned it up and touched up my black paint where I needed to. So now I have white vinyl, and these are leftover pieces of vinyl from my vinyl cutter and other projects I've done, and I'm just hand cutting some little eyes in the shape that I want for my little kitty cats here. So once I had the shape that I wanted, I went ahead and used that as a pattern and cut out the rest of them. And now I'm coming in with my Arteza marker. This is an acrylic paint marker in fluorescent green, and I am just creating the little green eyes. And once those were all dry, I peeled away the backing on my vinyl, and I placed down all of my little vinyl stickers essentially. And now I'm just coming in with a regular black Sharpie, and I am doing the little slitted pupils for my kitty cats. So then I pulled out a piece of adhesive felt. Yes, that's what that is. And I'm drawing on the back of it the shape of the ears that I want to create. And I'm going to create a front and a back for each ear because this is adhesive. So I'm going to stick the two sides together basically. And so you can see here I'm lining them up and making sure that they're all the same shape and same size. I did use some of these as a pattern again once I had them cut out the way that I wanted, and I just created multiples that way. So went ahead and started peeling the backs off and sticking them together, and once I had those all done, I went ahead and I attached them to my kitty cat's ears. But right now I'm just checking to see how I want them to look and making sure that everything is going to work the way I want it to. So I've got all their ears set, just cleaning up my station a little bit here. And then I'm going to come in with some hot glue to apply the ears. So just a little dab of hot glue across the base of the ear and sticking it right on top on the glue stick. And I think I'm going to show you here in a second how I did that a little bit better. And I'm sorry if you can hear Sammy rattling around in the back. He's hanging out with me as usual. But just going ahead and applying those ears on just to the top of the paint stick. So now I have my hula skirt or my little grass skirt from the Dollar Tree. I've been using this for a whole bunch of projects, but pulling off a piece of what I refer to as the raffia, and I'm going to tie it around my kitty cat's neck. Now I saw a larger version of these, I think it was on Etsy, and I want to do the full size of them. That's where I got the inspiration from. So when I do the full size, I will show you that inspiration picture, and because these are a little bit different than those, but I'm excited to do that full-size set of kitty cats in a future video. So once I had my little knots tied with my raffia, I had gone ahead and trimmed it off. You probably saw that. Now I'm using some chenille stems or pipe cleaners, whatever you want to call them, and I'm curling up the bottom of the one end just to give it, some area for adhesion. You saw that I dropped some hot glue on there, and I'm just attaching their little tails this way. Now, if I had to do this again, I would first add a little square block from the Dollar Tree, those little wooden squares, and use that for more stability. I'd paint it black and just then attach their tail, like wrap their tail around that, if that makes sense, because this worked, but it wasn't nearly as stable as it probably would have been had I used a little block on the back end. So keep that in mind if you decide that you want to make these, and you might be well served by just having a little block or something to help them stand up a little bit more stably. And you'll see in a second how I did that and how they were a little bit wobbly. We made it work though. So you can see I'm kind of bending that pipe cleaner out so it has a bit of a kickstand, and then I'm securing it down with some hot glue. So now that they're standing up there, you can kind of see that little kickstand, and you see how it's a little wobbly? Just have to kind of get it to be bent the right way. But again, you could save yourself some trouble and put something else on the back end, but you can see how they're standing there. Now I'm just going to go ahead and shape the tail, and these little guys are all set and done. I just think they are adorable, but let me know what you think in the comments. DIY number 20. For this project, I am using one of these little mini palettes from the Dollar Tree, and this is just a concoction. It's watered down paint that I've had for some time. I had mixed it a while back, and I just pull it out and use it when I need to. The reason I'm doing this is to help make this little palette look old and worn, as if it's been outside. And the thought here, this was Rich's idea. My fiance Rich had said, you know all those palettes that people put out in their yards and they have painted American flags on them? Maybe you can make a mini one of those. So I loved that idea, and that's what we are doing. So I wanted it to look old and weathered, and now I'm coming in with my Ocean by Waverly. And again, I am not taping this off. I'm just doing it by hand. It doesn't need to be perfect because I actually want it to look rustic and like it's been outdoors. So went ahead and did my little rectangle in the top left corner, and now I'm going to come in and start with my stripes. Now when I started doing this, I realized I probably should do my white stripes first, because it would be easier to come over white with red rather than trying to come over red with white because they're all going to kind of blend together here a little bit. So I'm coming in with my white stripes now and getting those done, and then I will come back in with the red. Now, if you've been watching me, you know that I recently did a little flag that I had painted. It was like a faux stack of books, and I had painted a flag on the top of them, and I had too few stripes and too many states, like too many stars. So I was determined to get this one right. So I'm just taking my time and figuring it out, because I know that I need 6 white stripes and I need 7 red stripes. So that's what I did here. And obviously there's a lot more white filling things in right here, but I'm gonna go ahead and get it taken care of with the red. So, and it all worked out perfectly. So coming back in with my red and getting all of that situated. If you're enjoying this video, I hope you'll give me a big thumbs up, and please be sure to comment, because it really does help YouTube to recognize my channel and help me to grow. And be sure to keep watching, because I do have that announcement I'm going to be making in a little bit. You are not going to want to miss out. I am so excited about what I'm going to be doing. You are going to love it. So coming in with all of my states now, and gave it a little little help with my heat gun to dry it, and now I'm just using my sanding block to give it a quick little sand. And there we have it. It's all done. I think this is so sweet. DIY number 21. So this project I am totally copying from Sammy at Unicorn Dust Designs. Thank you, Sammy, for the inspiration. It is involving 3 Dollar Tree picture frames that I found that were all the same style. I've got my Gorilla Glue. I had shown you a couple of glass candle holders. This is some scrapbook paper from the Hobby Lobby, and I'm showing you that it's 69 cents, but I got it for $1. They seem to have those on sale all the time. And I'm starting out by removing the little uprights. What do you call those on the back of the picture frame that helps them stand up? But we're not going to need those, so I'm just pulling those off, and I'm going to save them for another project down the road. And I'm going to take everything out, glass included, because I'm going to start by giving the frames a dry brushing of the Adirondack white chalk paint once more. So I'm just going to get everything situated. And you want to be careful. I don't know if you saw that, but I totally broke that little piece of the frame. It's okay because there are other notches, but these frames are not wood. They're like a heavy foam of some sort. So you just want to be really careful and gentle when you're pulling back those tabs, or you'll snap it like I did. So I am just going to go ahead and pull out some of my parchment paper, get everything set, get my stuff out of the way. And I'm going to come in and, like I said, give these a good dry brushing of my Adirondack white chalk paint. So I'm taking my brush, wiping off most of it. This is my chippy brush that I'm using. And I'm going to do this with all 3 frames until they are the way that I would like them to be. So now I'm taking the glass inserts and I am tracing on the back of the paper, and I'm making sure that I'm doing it in the way that I want the slats of the faux wood to go, the design basically. So just want to be aware of that. And now I'm finding center on the back of the paper, and I'm going to trace the piece that I know I'm going to be gluing to the glass part onto the back of here, and I'll explain why I'm doing it on the back in a little bit. Then I'm going to be finding center on my other pieces. Wherever I'm going to be attaching things together, that's where I'm finding center, and I'm marking and tracing just so that when it comes time to assemble it with the glue, I know exactly where I need to place things, because I really wanted to make sure that I had everything lined up. So I'm putting the paper in upside down for right now. We will flip it over later, but right now I just want to get everything assembled. So now you can see where it is that I need to glue everything. That third one, we're not gluing anything to the top, which is why I was able to put the paper in the right way originally. So coming with my Gorilla Glue on 6 of the 8 little sides, and then did some hot glue on those last 2. Sorry about my head, you guys. Kept getting my head in the way of the shot. But so I glued that down on the smallest piece on the underside, and I'm using the wider part to support each tray, because Sammy was brilliant when she did that. It just gives each level a little bit more support. So the narrow end is going on the base, and then the fat end is supporting the shelf for the next level. Hopefully that makes sense. So doing the same thing for the next level, using the Gorilla Glue on all but 2 sides, and then coming in with a little bit of hot glue to make sure that that is secure. And I did that for tops and bottoms. So coming in again, Gorilla Glue, and then I'll be adding some hot glue there. And then, of course, now I'm not paying enough attention. Totally crooked, Corie. What are you doing, girl? I tried to fix it. Of course, the hot glue had cooled really quickly, so I'm like, what do I do? Do I let it just dry like that? And I said, yeah, no, I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. So I pulled off the hot glue, and I also wiped off the glue there just so I made sure that I had a clean surface, and then I tried it again. So here we go, straight this time, and I am loving this tiered tray, you guys. Sammy, thank you so much. If you want to see how Sammy did it, I do have a link in my description box for her video. So here it is where I'm flipping the papers right side up. Remember that your little frame isn't supported by anything, and I'm sorry you can't see here, but I'll do it again in a second for that top level, and you'll see what I did. So opening it up, I'm going to hold the frame because the glass is connected, but the frame itself that goes around the glass isn't supported by anything, right? It's just floating there. So held on to that, flipped the paper over, sealing it back up again, and there you have it. I love this. Thanks, Sammy. DIY number 22. For this project, I am going to be using a tumbling tower block. I'm after one of those chocolate brown ones, and then I have these grapevine hearts that I picked up from the Dollar Tree and didn't have a chance to use for Valentine's Day. So I'm taking out 3 of the hearts, and I noticed that some of them have a copper wire going through them, and some of them had silver, and I was after the copper, so I swapped one of those out. And then I'm just trimming off some of the little edges because they weren't quite going together the way that I wanted them to. And then it was all set. This is so quick and easy, you guys. Placing my tumbling tower block for my little stem and just using a lot, very generous amount of hot glue. So making sure that it's positioned the way I want it, and then I set it aside to cool. Once it was cool, it was really very secure. I was really happy with it. So now I'm going to come in with this jute, it's not jute, it's like a twine, but it's from burlapfabric.com. My friends there sent this to me, and it's really pretty. It's got a light green running through it with a regular twine color. And so I just put a little bit of hot glue at the base there to secure it, and I'm going to wrap it around my stem, and then I'm also going to wrap it around the area where the hot glue is holding everything together. I wanted to cover it up, but then also help this look a little bit more rustic and give it a little hint of green for spring and St. Patrick's Day. So this was the way that I chose to do that, and you can do it. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I just wrapped it until it was the way that I wanted it to look. I went around each of the hearts, made sure that it was also helping to secure all of my little parts together. Then I came down to the end, secured it with a little bit more hot glue. I trimmed that off, flipped it over on itself. Hope you can see that, to just kind of hide the end there. And that was really it. Such a quick and easy project, but I love this little clover. So then I decided I did want to add a cute little bow. So just a regular tire shoelace bow. Decided where I wanted to position it. Finally decided on the top. Some more hot glue, just a dab to secure that. But let me know what you think of this little project. DIY number 23. So I have a scrap piece of wood from my stash, one of the little wooden blocks. That one I think is from a pack from Hobby Lobby. They also have them at Dollar Tree that are a little bit larger. And now I am just pulling out some scrap pieces of paint sticks from my stash that I wanted in 3 different lengths. And I'm pulling out also a piece of little birch wood that I'd gotten from the Hobby Lobby, from the Dollar Tree, and I had a little piece of a tumbling tower block. This is my pumpkin chalk paint by Home Decor. I'm just painting everything with my orange chalk paint. This is going to be a very minimalist set of little pumpkins, you guys. I decided I just wanted some extra little pieces that were relatively neutral, for lack of a better term, that I could include on my tiered tray. I really wanted my decals to take front and center, and so I didn't want a ton of extra little signs and things. You could certainly embellish these however you want. Mine are going to be super minimalist. So my little paint sticks I am doing in a stacked manner. You saw me kind of offsetting them because I want these to be able to stand up on their own. So I figured if I did all three kind of offset with each other, they would have a better chance of being able to do that. So I just used my hot glue there, and now I have this twig that I had left over from a twig broom that I had pulled apart last year, and I am just creating some extra little stems for these tall skinny pumpkins. I had cut off a nice clean edge for the edge I was going to glue down, and then I broke off the stem for the part that's going to look like it was picked out of the garden, and I did the same thing for all three of those little pumpkins, and then I just glued them down with my hot glue. And so once I had that all set, I went back to my little grass skirt and I grabbed some more of what I'm going to call raffia. I don't know, is that really raffia? I don't know. Leave me a comment and let me know if that actually is what raffia is or if it's something completely different. I'm calling it raffia, but I went ahead and just tied a sweet little bow, and I'm gonna clip off my ends, and that's it for those little guys. I did decide to come back in on my two original block pumpkins, and I'm gonna give it some greenery. So I'm just cutting down some little leaves that I had, and I'm gonna attach those there. Now, I decided that they really weren't the right shape, and I wanted to make them look a little bit more like they belonged on a pumpkin. So I went ahead and cut them the way that I wanted them. Would be much easier to do this before you glue them on, just saying, and live and learn. That's what I did for the next little pumpkin. So I cut it into the shape that I wanted, and then I went ahead and glued it down. So this is some wired twine from the Dollar Tree that I had left over in my stash. I'm just gluing with a teeny little bit of hot glue to each of the ends so that it doesn't unravel. And then once I had all my little strands done, I'm using a little dowel, wrapping them around the dowel, loosening it up a teeny little bit to make it look the way that I want it, and then I'm gluing down my little squigglies for my little pumpkins. And I did the same thing for the other one. And this doesn't have to be perfect. It can be like random with the way that the squiggles are, because if you think about it in nature, it's going to be extremely random, and they're going to stick in different directions and do their own things. So again, whatever makes you happy. DIY number 24. For this project, I am using this pick from Hobby Lobby. I've had it in my stash for a while. And then this is a ring from a paper towel holder from the Dollar Tree that I had popped off to use the rest of that paper towel holder for a different project. And then I have some silver paddle wire also from the Dollar Tree. So you know me, I'm clipping apart my little picks, but I'm going to take one little piece at a time, use my paddle wire to wrap the little stem and then attach it to the ring that I'm using as a little wreath form. And I am going to do that all the way around. So clipping off some smaller sections of my pick and wrapping the stem to attach it to the wreath form with the paddle wire. So really simple way to make a cute little wreath. And then I have this wood round. This is from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to remove the twine and give it a couple of coats of the white Adirondack chalk paint. This is by Home Decor. And then I have this little decal that I had created with my Silhouette Cameo. And you can see those boxes. If you're not familiar with how to create decals that are multicolored, you use these little boxes that are referred to as registration marks, and that helps you line up your image. Now, I should have made them different sizes or shapes or something as I was doing it, designing it, because yeah, I was trying to find the right way to lay it down here, and I finally figured it out and got all my little squares lined up. And that just helps make sure that when you put your image together, all the parts are in the right places. So it takes the guesswork out. And then I'm going to remove those registration marks before I get ready to apply my design to my wood round. And I'll just get it all lined up, make sure it's straight. And then I'm going to come in and burnish it and then remove my transfer tape. And I am good to go with my design. Now I'm going to take a little bit more of the paddle wire and I'm going to bend that in half and I'm going to loop it through my little hole there, and then through that loop I'm going to push the ends. So hopefully that's making sense. And then I'm going to use that to attach it to the top of my little wreath so it floats in the middle of the wreath. And then I'm taking the twine that I had removed from the wood round a little bit earlier, and I'm going to use that as my hanger for my wreath. So just attaching that to the top. And now I'm going to make a little stand for it because I want it to be able to adorn my tiered tray. So it needs a way to stand up. So this is a handle from a plunger from the Dollar Tree, and I am just cutting it down to size. And then I have these awesome little push pins with hooks on them, also from the Dollar Tree. And so I'm going to press one of those into the top, and I'm actually going to hammer it in. So once I've got that set, I'm taking a couple of wooden ornament rounds, if you will, from Christmas, and I'm going to sandwich a couple of them together with some hot glue. I'm just creating a base for my little wreath stand, using some wood glue for that long-term permanent bond. And then I'm also going to use my staple gun, and I'm sorry I'm a little out of frame here, but I just popped a staple right in there and then I just hammered it down to make sure that it was flush with the surface so that it wouldn't get in the way. And I've got my little wreath stand. I just thought that was so cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. DIY number 25. So for this project, I am grabbing a heart wood piece from my stash, leftover from Valentine's Day, and I have some leftover greenery from some floral pick that I pulled apart at some point, and I'm going through my paints trying to find a red that I like for this, and I finally settled on this one. I believe it was called Fire Engine Red, if I'm not mistaken. This is a folk art acrylic paint, and once I had it, I gave it 2 coats. I'm coming in and giving it little seeds. If you haven't figured it out yet, I am making a little strawberry. So I went in with my acrylic paint marker and gave it all its little seeds, and now I am working on the greenery, and I'm just cutting out that plastic piece because I want to be able to manipulate these little leaves, and it was just getting in the way. So I'm layering them on here. I've got 3 sets of 2 leaves each, and if you think about strawberries, the green little tops kind of lay flat to the strawberry, so that's what I'm going for here. So I actually am applying these leaves upside down to how they normally would be on the flower. So hopefully that's making sense. And I am just securing them down with some hot glue and getting them all into place until they are where I want them. And now, once I have these all set down, I am going to want to come in with a little stem. And so I was trying a couple of different things. You can see up in the top right corner, and forgive my messy table, you guys. It is time for me to resurface this work table for sure. So forgive all of the paint marks and messiness of it, but I tried a couple of different things. I finally settled on one of these little nubbies as opposed to the ones that have like the prong looking things over there. They just weren't sitting down properly. So I'm now coming in with some floral wire because I just wanted to give the little nubby stem a little bit more substance. So I'm wrapping the floral wire around it and around it and around it, and just entirely wrapping that with the wire. And then I'm going to come in with just a little teeny tiny bit of hot glue in a second, just to make sure that it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I did not use a lot. It was like whatever was dripping off the end of my little nozzle kind of thing. So once that's secure, I went ahead and cut off another length of the floral wire. And for this part, I am just going to use my little paintbrush and do little curly cues with it. So you know how strawberry plants have those little tendrils, or I forget what they actually call them. I think there's runners, maybe? I forget what they're called, but you get the idea. So there's my little strawberry. Again, ignore my messy desk, but I'll give you a cleaner shot of it here. DIY number 26. I actually had started this at the very beginning of creating my channel, but I lost a lot of the footage because I was having trouble with technology issues when I was first starting out. So I'm recreating a little bit here to show you what I did. I had that candle holder that I showed you first from the Dollar Tree. I have 4 of these candlestick holders that I glued together with E6000. So 2 sets of those, so a total of 4, created 2 little risers, if you will, just like that. Then I also have my burner covers from the Dollar Tree, as well as a pizza pan, also from the Dollar Tree. So what I did was I flipped that candle holder upside down. I used a whole bunch of E6000. I secured my pizza pan with the E6000, then used more E6000 to secure the double candlestick holder here. Then on top of that, I used the larger of the larger of the burner covers, some more E6000 with another double candlestick, and I'm getting really close to the camera here, and then the smaller of the burner covers. Hopefully this makes sense. So here it is when it was put together. I had already painted part of it, and then when I realized I had lost a lot of my footage, I had abandoned it until this past winter when I went ahead and completed it. So I went over it with all of my Rust-Oleum white linen paint, and then I also distressed it a little bit with antique wax. And here it is all finished and decorated. DIY number 27. So for this project, I am starting out with these little wooden cubes that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I realized while I was measuring it that it actually said on there what it was supposed to be. It's 2 1/4 inches. I actually end up using a different block that's a little bit smaller later, but I am so excited, you guys. I have received a Cricut Joy from Cricut, and I have been wanting one of these machines for so long because I had heard that they are fantastic for quick and easy little projects, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. This was a joy to work with. See what I did there? But I downloaded the app onto my phone. It took me 30 seconds to get myself set up on the app. It took about 30 seconds to set up the machine. It is Wi-Fi enabled, so all you have to do is plug it in and it hooks up to your phone and you're good to go. The app is super easy to use. Now you saw that I was using that first sheet of vinyl. It's called Smart Vinyl. So the Joy uses smart materials, meaning that they don't require a mat. Now you see that I am using the little mat that came with it because you do have that option for this next little cut job that I'm doing, because I'm kind of the thought of waste not, want not, and I trimmed down my first project and I had this extra vinyl and I wanted to use the extra vinyl, and you need to have a certain amount, I think, in order for it to run through the machine properly, and this odd shape was not going to do it. So I added it, I put it on the little mat, and I designed it with the grids in mind, because in the app itself you see all those little grids also, so you can figure out exactly where you want your design to be cut. Hopefully that's making sense. So I did that, and you just hit like unload, it unloads it, and this is so super easy. I went ahead and cut out another word in red, and then once I had all of those cut, I think I actually did do one in silver as well, and that I'm going to show you. So again, I'm going to use the little mat. For the red, I didn't use the mat. Now I'm back to using the mat because I cut out that teeny little piece of vinyl that I had from a scrap from setting up the machine and cutting out my little ampersand that I wanted to use for my project. So once I had everything cut, I went ahead and weeded everything. I'm not going to put you through watching me weed everything, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of people weed their projects, and here with the white vinyl you can't even see what I'm doing. So I don't know, there's something a little bit satisfying about it. But once I had that set, here I'm showing you the wood pile, and I decided to go with these because once I had my words cut out, I decided I wanted them to fill up the space a little bit more than they were going to do on those other blocks. I'm showing you all my paint colors. It was the Imperial Red by Home Decor, the Ocean by Waverly, and the Adirondack White, also by Home Decor. They're all plaid products. Love plaid. You know, it's funny, over time I've learned that most of what I use is plaid, and half the time I didn't even realize that that was what I was using. But the first block I did entirely blue. The second block I started with 2 blue panels opposite each other, and now on the third block, while those are drying, I'm coming in and doing white on 2 panels opposite each other. Now I'm going back to block number 2, and I'm adding in 2 more panels of white opposite from each other. So on block number 2, I'm going to have 2 white, 2 blue, and 2 red panels, and they're all going to be opposite each other, so the colors are nice and mixed. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, because now I'm coming in with the red. Now I didn't bother to tape any of these off. I figured it was going to be just fine doing it this way. I was just real careful at the edges to sweep my brush off the edge as opposed to letting it wrap down around the side of the cube. Hopefully you're understanding what I mean. But I managed to get really nice crisp edges, so I was very happy with it. So with block number 3 now, the white is dry on those 2 panels, and then I'm just going to paint the remaining 4 panels with the red. So hopefully you're seeing my patriotic theme that's going on here. So now I am going to go ahead and prep all of the words that I had weeded using my Cricut transfer tape. I'm just going to burnish it and then peel away the backing, and once I have that ready to go, and I had this really long piece of transfer tape. I don't know why I didn't cut it down, but that's why you see the paper on it. Normally I just remove the paper entirely, but I realized I really didn't need the entire length that I was working with. So, but as you can see, again, I'm just using the same transfer tape over and over, because it's not a one and done, right? So that's what I love about some of these products, is that you can go ahead and use them multiple times. I don't know why I was struggling with this one, but trying to get that backing off. But went ahead and got it on the transfer tape, applied it, burnished it, and then just peeled away the transfer tape. Really easy. Now, if you do not have a vinyl cutter, do not fret, because you can hand letter these. You could print something off of your printer and use graphite paper and trace them on that way. There are a lot of different ways that you can do things like this. You could use a stencil. It doesn't have to be a vinyl cutter. But if you have a vinyl cutter and you want to use that, you know, all the power to you. Now, of course, I got my stars and stripes on here and realized that I put my ampersand on the white, and I really wanted to put it on the red so I would have one red, one white, and one blue block showing. So I'm very carefully using my little spatula that Cricut sent with the package that they had sent to me. And I managed to get it off. I did end up putting it back on the transfer tape, and I'm trying to be real careful not to put my fingers all over the adhesive because I don't want to make it not sticky anymore with the oils from my fingers. So I managed to get it reshaped on the transfer tape and got it applied to the red block. So there we go. And yeah, I think it looks super, super cute. And so these are little stackable blocks with our red, white, and blue. And then the other little thing that I had cut out with that extra vinyl before, I had just made a bunch of little stars. And it was simply a matter of selecting a shape in the Cricut app. They have all kinds of shapes, all kinds of designs that are all set and ready. You just select it, you know, make it whatever size with your fingers that you want it to be using the grid on the app, and then you send it to cut. It's so super easy. I am in love with the joy. Just absolutely love it. So super easy to use, super quick, and you can take it anywhere because it's so compact. I love it. I can't say enough good things about it, you guys. So here is my little stars and stripes. Let me know what you think of this one. DIY number 28. So this was only inspiration insofar as it reminded me that I had a cute little elephant that needed some love waiting to be painted on my shelf. It doesn't really go with coastal decor, which is really the theme, but I figured, you know what? She can look super pretty and cute on my tiered tray no matter what I have on it. And I've always heard that elephants are supposed to be good luck, especially if their trunks are facing a door. So that's my plan. So I'm coming in, I'm using the mineral chalk paint again, and I am giving her a really good coat, making sure I've got her completely covered. And then I'm coming in with elephant chalk paint. So, I know I'm probably not as funny as I think I am, but anyway, I am just using a very dry brush to apply some of the elephant chalk paint because I just wanted to bring out this texture. There's a pattern that is in the clay, or whatever it is that you would call this, pottery, clay, ceramic, but I wanted to be able to see that little design, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better. And I did come in and paint her little tail as well. Now I'm coming in with some black to give her some eyes and just making nice little round eyes on either side of her head, and I'm going to be just checking and making sure that I'm getting them lined up properly and nice and even in the same size. And once her little eyes were completely dry with the black, I'm actually going to come in just a second with white. So you can see me with the white. I'm taking a little tiny bit. And this is just my little, I don't even know what that tool is called. Is it an embosser? It might be an embossing tool. But I just took a little tiny bit of white and put some light in her eyes. And now you can see I'm coming in with just a little flower that she's going to be able to hold in her trunk. As you can see, I was trying to use hot glue and using my little tool there again to try and secure it. It didn't hold, so I'm taking the glue off and trying one more time. Ultimately, I did go back in and use E6000 instead because the hot glue just wasn't cutting it for this. But I thought she was super cute. So let me know what you think in the comments. I love elephants. I love all animals. They're just so sweet. What's your favorite animal? Let me know in the comments. DIY number 29. For this project, I am using this little picture from the Dollar Tree as well as a Dollar Tree wooden bunny. It came in a pack of 6 or 8. And then I have a piece of scrapbooking paper from Hobby Lobby. I got it when they were 4 for $1. Just filling in that little hole in the bunny's ear and setting it aside to dry. You saw me pop off that little thing on the front of the frame, and I'm going to pop off the back too. And I'm not worried about that little hanger that's going to pop off either, because I'm not going to be using that, but I will set it aside and save it for another project. So tracing my backing onto the back of the scrapbook paper, and I'll go ahead and I'll cut that out. And then I will adhere it to the front of my sign. And I'm using this double-sided tape that I got from the Dollar Tree on this little nifty roller applicator thing. I love this stuff. So applying my paper, and once I have that on nice and secure, I'll set it aside, and I'm going to paint the frame. I'm going to give it a couple of coats of my Adirondack white chalk paint, painting the little bunny as well. And now once the frame is dry, I'm going to pop the backing back into it. So I've got my new little background. And now I'm going to take my Arteza acrylic paint marker, and you saw me flipping the point because with the acrylic markers, or excuse me, any of the Arteza paint markers, they have a dual tip, and so I wanted the fine tip for what I'm doing here. So I'm painting her a little eye, and I was just trying to figure out where exactly I thought it should land, and then just making sure that I'm making it large enough to be on her face and be relatively the right size. So I was just showing you my vintage Victorian chalk paint. I remembered the name of it this time. And I'm almost dry brushing with this really pale pink color just to get a little bit of a hint of the color where I want it deposited. So I did the inside of her ears, and then I also did her little nose. So I'm checking to make sure it's going to fit and figuring out how I want it centered, and I'm using some of these little wooden blocks also from the Dollar Tree, and I think they come in a pack of about 50 if I'm not mistaken. So using 2 of those, and then I am going to adhere her right onto our little sign background, if you will. Just using some more hot glue for that. I'm going to make sure that I've got her nice and even and centered in my frame. And now I'm using my white acrylic paint because I wanted to give her a little bit of a shine to her eye, give her some light in her eye, make her look a little bit more lively. And now I'm thinking I really want to define her body. So I'm using a very, very small paintbrush with some antique wax. This is the Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just coming in and I'm trying to define where her little legs are. And at one point here, because I'm going to do her neck, I'm like, oh, that's too much. So I pulled out a baby wipe and I went ahead and kind of smudged the lines, and I started doing that with a bunch of the lines. And it looks like it's completely gone in some places, but I will go back over it. I actually decided I was going to use the baby wipe to apply it, and just adding some shadowing around her edges. So around her ears, I'll go down her back, and just adding some of the antique wax wherever I think it would help to provide her with a little bit more dimension. Defining her little neck so she actually seems to have a head. Defining her legs some more. And I love using the baby wipe because it helps control the amount of wax that I'm putting down, and then I can always go back in with a clean part and wipe it away if I get too much. But I love her. Let me know what you think. DIY number 30. Okay, so I have another set of decals. I did cut these all down in different pieces because I'm going to be putting them on a stemless glass, wine glass, and I thought they would probably adhere better without wrinkling because of the way that the glass is shaped. Now, I am including this to show you my faux pas. This was the very first time I tried to use the water slides, you guys. So I'm showing you this to show you that it really is not difficult. This was the first time I ever tried. Definitely had some operator error here though, right? So one thing I will say, because this is a clear decal paper, it's translucent, so you can kind of see through my letters there. So if you want something that's nice and solid, you would definitely want to go for a white paper. But if you like the look of having it be translucent, then this is definitely it. I will say that you can see on the clear glass some of the clear material around the words. So just keep that in mind. Now, being that it was my first time doing this, I wasn't thinking about the fact that I probably shouldn't be using the same cloth that I used to clean the glass with rubbing alcohol. It was starting to break down my picture. So don't use rubbing alcohol on the actual image. Probably should have occurred to me before I started this project. Again, operator error. So the other thing I realized was that I left my little ghosts in the water way too long. 30 to 60 seconds is all you need. They were probably in there for a couple of minutes, and as a result they started to separate from the backing paper and they started folding over on themselves. Total operator error. I messed this up. Had I just waited until I was ready to use them and dropped them in the water for the 30 seconds, I would have been okay. Now, I finally gave up on it. I couldn't get them unfolded. This is definitely a fail, but I wanted to leave it in to show you how it would work on a regular glass. So it definitely works. Just do as I say, not as I do. But so then I went ahead and moved on. This was my second attempt, and this one came out so sweet. I love it. I think it looks store-bought. You know, not to toot my own horn. I was so impressed with how this decal worked. So this is just a little ceramic sign from the Dollar Tree. I cleaned it up, used rubbing alcohol. Now I'm using a clean paper towel to dab out all of the water after I had slid it on the way that you've seen me do on the other projects. And just very gently sweeping the water out from under it. Now, keep in mind again, this is sped up 3 times. I am being very gentle here. You can this is how gentle I was being, because this is real time now. But look at how nice that came out. And you don't really notice the clear material around the outside of the image on the white background. So, really, really like this a lot. I'm coming in with some of my Dollar Tree ribbon because I decided it just needed a little bit something extra, and I've got my grass skirt again, and I'm just tying a few strands of that in with my ribbon to create a cute little, I can't really call it a bow, it's a knot, but it's going to serve as my little bow. I'm just going to trim everything down and get it looking the way I wanted it. And then once I did have it all trimmed down here, I'm still trimming away, I decided it needed a little bit something more. I wanted more of that raffia. I'm still calling it raffia, you guys. I don't know if that's what it is or not. But so I cut down a few extra strands. I literally just twisted it there. I did not create another knot. And this was after playing with it a lot. I was trying to tie it with my little knot. It wasn't working out, right? So I messed with it for a while. It finally settled on twisting it and just gluing it down and then adding my little knot / bow. And there you have it. DIY number 31. For this project, I am starting out with some, I guess you would call that vase filler from Hobby Lobby. I have it in my stash for a while. I have a couple of really thin vases that I also had in my stash. My sister had given them to me a while back. I have what was a candle, so the glass candle holder is all that remains, and I have 3 of these awesome trays from the Dollar Tree. So I am just filling my little glass, what used to be the candle holder, with some of the vase filler and just getting that nice and full. And then I'm going to be putting one of the trays right down on top of it. Just going to use some hot glue for this. putting that around the edge. My thought here is that this is not going to be a permanent bond, so I can easily take it apart later to put different things in here for different holidays. So hopefully you're getting what I'm doing here. So I also have this fun, I don't know what you would even call this, a faux sparkler maybe? I don't know, but it's celebratory, and I just thought it would be so fun to put down inside of this little bud vase, right, that I'm going to be using as the riser for my next layer of my tray. Now, I did intend for this to be a 3-tiered tray, and then I ended up cracking one of the bud vases that you're going to see here in a second. And so I was trying to put that little wire across the top, and that's where I broke it. Right, I hadn't trimmed it down quite enough, and I forced it, and so now it's going to be a 2-tier tray instead. But the reason I was doing that, the little sparkler, for lack of a better term, that I'm placing down in here, over time I didn't want it to sag and end up kind of drooping in the bottom. So I wanted something across the top that would support it. So I glued the little tip of it to the stem that I'd cut off, and then I anchored that stem at the top of the bud vase. Hopefully that's making sense. So you can see it's kind of like a little T at the top there. Then I'm going to go ahead and secure my bud vase to the tray, and then I'm also going to do the same. Sorry, I'm out of frame here. It's this new camera angle that I've been working with, but I added some more hot glue around the edge of that, and I'm putting that down. I did it upside down this time to make sure that I was going to be able to see where the center was. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to flip this back right side up, and now you can see my cute little 2-tiered tray. Let me know what you think. DIY number 32. So this really can't even be called a true DIY, you guys, but I threw it in here as a bonus. I'd gotten these adorable little piggies at the Dollar Tree. I loved them, and I'd asked all of you what I should do with them, whether I should paint them or leave them alone. And some of my sweet subscribers suggested that I should just do the wings. So I'm coming in with some more of my Arteza glitter and my Mod Podge. And here I'm just trying to determine how I want to do this. This is before I thought of the custom glitter glue solution. So I'm just coming in and I am painting wherever I want the glitter, and then I am sprinkling the glitter on. Obviously I have my little bin underneath to catch any of the excess glitter. And so I'm just putting the glitter on the piggy hooves, on his little tongue, and then on his wings as well. But you could really do this however you want. I just thought that they were really super cute. So I did this with all 3 of the little piggies and just dolled them up with this pink glitter and my Mod Podge. Like I said, it's hardly a DIY, but I just love them and I wanted to share them with you. So then, again, do as I say, not as I do. I just dumped glitter all over my table thinking I was going to be able to get it in into the little tiny container from that big fat container, and yeah, that didn't work. So as you can see, I ended up pouring the rest of it out on my parchment paper, and I used that to get it back into the container. But here they are, and I just love them. I think they're cute. DIY number 33. So this is my inspiration. This is also from Kirkland's. I thought it was so pretty. Now, I don't have a clear glass vase, or not vase, candle holder that is that type of shape, but I did have this kind of bumpy one from the Dollar Tree. So again, another really quick, cute project. Using my hot glue, I am going to attach some of my jute twine to the top of this on either side. And then once I have both sides secured, and I'm using my awesome finger protectors that my subscribers sent me, I'm gonna go ahead and apply some thinner twine around the whole top of this votive holder. And so I'm just securing it with some more hot glue, and then I'm going to just wrap and wrap and wrap and wrap until I get it to where I want it to be. I did go down, wrapping from the lip down for probably about a ½ inch, and then I came back up again and wrapped it back around, so it had 2 layers of the twine. But you can do it again, do it however you like it, and just using a tiny little bit of the hot glue so that it wouldn't be perceptible. And there's our little candle holder. Let me know what you think in the comments. DIY number 34. For this project, another cute, simple little idea. Dollar Tree has these, I believe they're in like the wedding section or celebration section, party section. And it's just a ceramic little sign that you can put anything you want on it. And I'm using my Arteza acrylic paint markers. I'm showing you flipping my little points again. I'm always trying to keep the lid with my little tweezers because I forget every time, well, not every time, but frequently I forget to flip the point back around again before I put my cap on, and you really need to make sure you do that or you will crush the fine point because it sticks out further than the blunt end. So hopefully that makes sense. So you want to make sure you always, and I almost forgot again, but you always want to make sure you flip that point around before you close up the marker. So I'm coming in with the black now and just adding in has between the spring and the sprung, and then I will go back over spring and sprung one more time just to darken up the color. And then I'm just going to come in and embellish my little sign. You can decorate these however you want to your heart's content. I used a whole bunch of different colors for this little sign just because when I think of springtime, I think of all of the beautiful flowers, all of the colors, and the colors just make me happy. I love color. So I was just going to town on decorating this little sign using my blues and my greens and my pinks, and now I am painting the base gold just to give it a little bit of an oomph. So then I'm going to come in along the side edges and the top and just doing a little vine with little green leaves and then purple flowers. And then I decided I was going to make it reversible. So on the other side, I am writing Happy Easter. So on the one side, we have spring has sprung, and the other side, we have Happy Easter. And I did come back in and darken that up again as well. And you don't have to, I just wanted my colors to be nice and rich and intense. And then I am coming back in and embellishing this side of it as well. Adding some Easter eggs to this side. I wanted to try to create little zigzags, but I was making them too fat. So I filled them in and I ended up putting little polka dots on them instead. So what would you do with this little sign? How would you decorate this? There we go. DIY number 35. So I am starting with this little sign from the Dollar Tree, Every Moment Matters, and it certainly does, and I take that to heart. However, for this project, I am going to be covering that up and painting over it. First, I decided to take out the little hanger, and I'll use that for another project for another day. So I am going to use my Adirondack white chalk paint in a moment, but I actually found my painter's tape, you guys, and so I am going to tape this off. I do like the gold edging on this, and so I wanted to protect it and not get white paint on it. So I went ahead and took care of that. And then I gave it probably 3 or 4 coats of my white chalk paint. That was what it took to get that completely covered. So once that was all done and I was satisfied that I couldn't see the image through it any longer, I went ahead and peeled off all of the painter's tape. That's always super satisfying. And then I set it aside to let it dry the rest of the way. So I am back to my app because I've been playing with the Joy app, and I think I mentioned before they have all kinds of neat designs that are already created. And so I had found this one called Home Sweet Home. Now this one's a little bit more complicated because it actually is 3 colors, but I wanted to show it because I wanted to make it, first of all. I just thought it was really cool. And then I also figured I'd be able to show you how I lined up the 3 different colors, and also how the machine works with this. It's really cool. So I went to go ahead and tell it to cut, and I'm going to show you here on the app. So it shows you exactly what it's going to cut with each color, and it's just going to do it in 3 different sets. Isn't that smart? I just thought that was so neat. So here I've got my little Joy. I've just plugged it in. I'm gonna put my vinyl on I'm using the matte this time because I am using a regular vinyl, and then I'll be using some smart vinyl, and I had to tell it to use the matte for the regular vinyl. So that's what I ended up using for all 3. I'm not going to go through all of this with you guys because I've already shown you how the machine works in this regard, but I used blue for the one piece, which is one of the homes with the whole stars, and then sweet was cut out in silver, and then the other home was cut out in red. I believe that was the order. Hopefully my memory is serving me correctly. So I got it all weeded, and here I am trying to put it together. So I essentially looked back on the app to inform my memory and how it needed to go together, because I did not use registration marks for this. I don't know if you can use registration marks with the Joy. That's something I've got to learn. I haven't had enough time to play with it to figure that part out. But this was just as easy for me. So if you just follow the picture, you can absolutely piece it back together. So I'm using the backing of the transfer tape because when I go to add the other pieces of this, I don't want my vinyl that's already on the transfer tape to end up sticking to my work surface, right? So I want to make sure that I've got something under it that is going to not stick to the vinyl, or not allow the vinyl to stick to it. And everything was curling up on me here, so I just taped everything down strategically in places where it wasn't going to get in the way. If I had to do it again, I would have taped it underneath so that the tape wouldn't have had any risk of getting in the way of my vinyl. So do as I say, not as I do. If you're going to do this, you know, circle your tape and stick it underneath, almost like a double-sided tape, so that it's nowhere near your vinyl. All right, just a word to the wise, because I almost had a mishap with it. I got lucky and I was able to salvage it, but yeah. So I went ahead and peeled up the second one, and then I did the same thing with that third piece and just made sure that I was getting it where it was supposed to sit within the design. And if it's not 100% perfect, it's fine, you know, it's still going to look super cute. Once I had it ready to go, I went ahead and I lined it up, made sure that it was all centered, went ahead and burnished it, and now I'm peeling away the transfer tape, and look at this. I love this so much, and it was so easy to do. Love, love, love. DIY number 36. So I have a couple of these cute little boxes with owls carved into them, burned into them. I'm not sure. There are some cutouts here also, but I thought they were super sweet, and we are going to customize them today. I am just using my Arteza paint markers. These are chalk paint markers, and I am just going to do what makes my heart happy, right? So as I always say, do what makes you happy. So you can customize these however you wish. And I am just using my Arteza paint markers because I love how you can flip out the tips on these, right? So they have reversible tips. They have just that blunt tip and then a fine tip that is allowing me to get into all those little nooks and crannies, if you will. And then they also send you a different kind of tip along with it. I don't know why I can't think of the name. It's like a slanted tip. Beveled? No. I think you probably know what I'm saying or trying to say. But it's like, my words are escaping me tonight, you guys, as I'm doing this voiceover. But at any rate, they have fantastic tips that are interchangeable on the paint markers, which make them really easy to work with. So once I had all of that done and dry, I have this yellow fabric from my stash that my mom had given me a while back, and I am cutting out some squares that will fit inside the lid of my box. So as I mentioned before, there are some cutouts, so you can see the little holes there, and I'm just going to cover it with this little yellow fabric piece that I'm using as a liner. I'm not too concerned about the edges on this one because I'm actually going to come back in a second. You can see I just used hot glue around all those edges. Just checking to make sure it's looking good on the box. But I'm going to come back in a second with another piece of fabric. So I'm going to cut this one a little bit larger than the inside of the lid because I want to kind of create a seam where I can fold all of these edges under so you don't see any of the raw edges. Now, if you have batting, like a thin piece of batting, that would work so much better than what I'm trying to do, or like a squishy foam something that you can wrap. First of all, you'd want to cut that down to size of the inside of your box and then wrap the fabric around it and then tuck it down in. See here, I am just using a little bit of polyfill because I did not have batting and I just wanted a little soft inside of my lid. I don't know if you've seen these, but I had a little jewelry box growing up and it had this nice little puffy lid on the inside of it. And I don't know. I thought I would recreate that. So that's what I'm going for here, you guys. But you certainly can skip this step. You certainly can just make nice edges and line the inside of your box, or you could leave it. You don't have to line the box, but I just thought it would be a nice little touch. And then I would have that yellow shining through for the eyes and the little feathers, and yeah, so that's what I decided to do. So there it is, and when I set it down, I noticed that this particular box lid was popping off a little bit. It wasn't as snug as the other one, so I decided to use some of this, I'm going to call it raffia. It is from a Dollar Tree hula skirt, one of those grass skirts, and I took a couple of strands and I am just tying it up a little bit like a gift. But instead of the large side of the box, I'm going to tie my little bow on the top of it so that it's got like a fun little thing going on the top. So I just tied a regular knot. I'm going to trim that off, and then I came back in with some extra strands of raffia and tied that on there too. I just decided I wanted to be a little bit more full than what I had with just those two original strands. So again, you do what makes you smile, right? So now I'm going to take all of that and I'm going to trim it off at the top so that it's all a little bit even, and we are good to go. I think this is so sweet. So I did the same thing with the lid of the other box, but on this one I'm going to wrap it with some of my orange buffalo check ribbon, and I'm just going to tuck in that end and glue it down onto my little box. And then I'm going to make just a little loop bow just set on the top of it. So I took that little teeny tiny piece and I'm gluing down that edge just so I have it centered. I know where I want it. making my little loop again with the other piece of ribbon. I'm going to kind of roll it there and then tuck some glue in underneath there once I have it nice and secure, and just set that down into the hot glue. So there we have it. I love these little boxes. I think they are so cute. Please give me a thumbs up if you like them too. DIY number 37. So for this project, I have a couple of these Dollar Tree shot glasses. I've got 3 of these little silver trays and a Dollar Tree razor blade that I'm going to be using here. So we've created all these cute little minis. I decided I needed another tray to display them on. So I'm using this little razor blade to shave off the writing that is on the shot glasses, and it worked really well. I was actually really happy with it. So I do recommend those little razor blades. And then I gave each of the glasses a couple of coats of the silver acrylic paint by Arteza. And now I just wanted to embellish them a little bit. So I have from the Dollar Tree these transfers. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people using these. They're really pretty. So I pretty much cut out all of the little leaf patterns that are there. I left the wreath. That was the only thing that was left in the end. And I went ahead and applied them to the little glasses and just went around and applied them over the entire surface all the way around each of the glasses until I had it the way that I wanted it to look. And these are so easy to use and they're so pretty. Look at how pretty those came out. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my tray together. I'm using my E6000. I am applying that to the base of the glass. I did not paint the base of the glass, as you can see, because I wanted the glue to adhere directly. So, and it's going to be hidden anyway, so no need for it to be painted, right? So applied that directly to the center, and with the etching on these little trays, it made it so much easier to find center. So at least on the top surfaces. So again, using E6000 and then leaving a couple of spaces for some hot glue. I'm not mixing my glues. I'm keeping them separated, making sure that's all lined up. And then I did the same thing with the next layer. So I did the E6000 on the outer edge and then some hot glue in the middle so I could get it done quickly and be able to keep working. And then again on the top, I did the E6000, left a gap on either side for the hot glue so that I would be able to get that to adhere quickly and be able to ensure that my E6000 was going to have sufficient time to cure. So very carefully, because it's still drying, I'm going to show you my tray. And I'm really happy with this. So now, if you want it to be a true farmhouse look, you could totally knock down the silver with some gray chalk paint. I chose not to do that because I want it to remain food safe, because I can actually use this for little canapes or whatever else. So now I'm taking 4 more little beads. One of them I had painted and not used on another project, so I'm just going to paint over that one, because these were the last 4 of this size and I needed it. So I'm painting those silver as well. This is the same silver that I used on the glasses, and I am using these as little feet on the bottom of my tray just to help lift it up off of the counter just a teeny tiny bit. Gives it a little bit of elevation. And there you have it. That's it. DIY number 38. So this is the piece I'm starting with. My sister had picked this up for me in a recent Dollar Tree haul. I was so excited. If you didn't get a chance to see that and you'd like to, I'll leave a link for it here, so you can just click on that little link that popped up and it'll take you to the haul video. But I am cleaning up this little panda bear watermelon thing, and I ripped off all of the front of it. Now, if this weren't a tiered tray, I might just cover it up with something. I want this to be a double-sided sign, essentially. So I am removing all of that paper off of there. I basically just wet it. You saw me literally dump water on it, and I'm using a baby wipe to scrub it. And you can see the adhesive actually appears to be water soluble. It kind of melted away with the water, and I was able to clean it all off. So then I just used my heat gun to dry it up, worked like a charm. You can see how it's drying it real nice. And then I'm going to come in with my pumpkin chalk paint, and I am going to kind of give it a little bit of a shape here. So as I mentioned, I do want this to be a double-sided sign. So everything that I do on the front side, I am going to mirror on the back side. And when I say mirror, it's actually going to be the opposite from the front, because it's going to be like you turned it over and you're looking at the back of the thing, right? So it won't be going in the same direction, it would be going opposite direction. And yeah, so hopefully I'm explaining that well. So I did give it a second coat of paint, and I'm just thinking about how I want to execute on the rest of this, because I know exactly what I want to do, but just trying to think it through as I go here. So I'm using the shape of this cutout wood to my benefit as best as I can, to the best of my ability. I'm just drawing the little stem right now, coming up over the top of it, because again, I want this to be like a three-dimensional pumpkin is essentially what we're creating. So you can see here I'm doing the same thing on the opposite side, but it's mirrored, right? So you can see it's going the opposite direction because it's the back of the piece, right? So if you think about the letter L, if you've got the L, you look at the front side of it, you flip it over, it's backwards, right? So you're looking at the back side of it. That's the best way I can explain. So then I wanted to come in with some of my fern chalk paint, and this, you can't really see it too well here perhaps, but there is a little bit, and here you're going to see it better, the way that it's cut out, it's almost like the perfect area for a leaf. If you look at that bottom area, you can see it a little bit better. Like, hopefully I'm explaining this properly. It's been a long day, you guys, when I'm doing this voiceover. But I'm just coming in and I'm filling in that area with my fern chalk paint, kind of creating like a little squiggle along the side there to kind of give the shape of my leaf. And then I'm just using the cut edges to my advantage. Filling all of that in, did the same thing on the other side. And now I decided I'm going to make those little squiggly, curly Q thingies that come off of pumpkins sometimes. Would you call that a vine? I'm not really sure. Again, I'm following the edges of the cutout, using that to my advantage. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do with the background. That darker wood color, I'm not really liking it so much. And I'm thinking, you know what, it needs some sort of a different background color. I'm still thinking about it here and working my way through. And then finally, see, think. Yeah, I need something else. So I decided I was going to come in with my white, and this is my Adirondack white chalk paint. Sammy is here with me. Sorry, his little chain is jingling. And I just filled in that whole area that is not pumpkin. And so I went ahead and did the back side of it first. And then I was thinking I would be able to kind of come in around the green squiggles that I had already done. And I pretty quickly gave up on that. I figured, you know what, I will just repaint those because it was just like a little bit more trouble than it was worth, you know, trying to make my way around all those little lines I'd created. So I went ahead and painted over it, and here I am coming back in and redoing those little lines. So you could probably see a little bit better how I was doing that too now, and just following the edge of the cutout. And I did that on both sides again, and so the one side is just mirroring the other. And now I'm coming in with my pencil and I am going to draw my words. And I'm only doing the words on the one side. And again, you know, I always talk about drawing my letters because this is not my handwriting, you guys. It really is like drawing a picture. So if any of you have ever gotten a letter or a card from me, you know that what you're about to see is definitely not my handwriting. So I am just using my pencil. I'm going really slow. You can see how slow I'm going, and this is sped up about 3 times. So be patient with yourself. Use a pencil if you feel like you need to have something to you know, rely on as a guide. And with the pencil, you can always erase it, right? If you do something that you don't like, you can always erase it, and it's not permanent. Even the paint isn't permanent. You can always paint over it and do it again, right? But I did my pencil, and now I'm just going right over the pencil lines with my Arteza acrylic paint marker. And I thought I was so clever doing this, you guys. I am sure that I am not the first person to think of this little saying, but I just was very pleased with, with myself. So hello, gorgeous. You see what I did that there? I'm still writing it out, so you can't even see the the whole word right now, but yeah, I crack myself up. I'm like self-entertained a lot of the time. So, yeah, I hope that you bear with me. But here it is. So, hello, gorgeous. You get it? But I'm coming in and I'm doing my faux calligraphy now. If you followed me, you've probably seen how I do this, and you probably have seen other crafters do it as well. But essentially on your downstrokes, wherever you're drawing down on your letters, that's where you're going to make them a little bit thicker, and it creates a faux calligraphy. And this is really something you can practice, you know, if you've not done it before and you're intimidated by it. I really encourage you to give it a shot, even just with a ballpoint pen on a piece of paper. You know, write out a word and then just fill in your downstrokes with a thicker line and then just color in between. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying when I describe it that way. But practice with a ballpoint pen and you'll see how pretty it is and how easy it is to do if you just take your time and just draw the letters the way that you want them to look. But I think this is super cute. Let me know what you think. DIY number 39. For this project, super cute and easy, I'm using these little snack bags from the Dollar Tree. I've got these little glass beads, and then I showed you, it's like some packing, like protecting stuff. I don't know. It's like this foam stuff. I was out of fiberfill, so I'm using what I've got. If you have fiberfill, that would be what I would recommend you use for this project. But I decided I wanted to round out these little bunnies' heads. So I had flipped it inside out. I'm bending over the corners and using some hot glue to get those adhered. And I'm tucking my hand inside as I press down on this so that I make sure that it doesn't actually send the hot glue all the way through to the other side, because it would kind of make a mess. But so I've just got that one rounded out. You can kind of see what it looks like there. And I did the same with the other. Once those were cool, I went ahead and put several of those little glass beads in the bottom just to weight it down and help it stand up. Now I'm taking some of my packing material, whatever this is called, I don't know, and I'm rolling it up into a nice smooth shape that I can tuck down into my little snack bag. So essentially I am stuffing these like I would a pillow, but like I said, fiberfill would be better. I'm using what I have, and then I'm going to tie off the little drawstrings as tight as possible, and I knotted those. So now I'm coming in with some ribbon. I'm going to, I guess I'm going to hot glue those little knots first, because I am planning on trimming off those drawstrings. So I wanted to make sure that there was no possibility that those knots were going to come undone. So I did hot glue those. And now I'm just going to create some cute little loop bows. So I want two of them, so once I have the first one kind of figured out size-wise, I went ahead and cut the same length, a second little ribbon, and then I'm cutting a couple of little pieces to go around the center of my bows. So creating a loop, pinching it in the middle, and then I'm going to come around with my other little piece that I actually folded in thirds and wrapping that around the center, fluffing up my bow a little bit. And I'm gonna hot glue that together so that it stays. Simple, simple way to make a cute little bow. And then I'm gonna trim off those drawstrings as I mentioned, and use a little bit more hot glue to secure my bow to the top of her little head. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other little bunny. So trimming off those drawstrings, securing the bow once created, and that's it. Aren't they cute? I just love these little bunnies so much. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. DIY number 40. So I have this wonderful water slide decal paper that my friends from Hippo sent me. This is clear water slide paper, and I went ahead and I printed out some designs from my Cricut design studio, sprayed it a few times, actually 3 times, waiting 30 minutes between each coat with that matte clear coat, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut my images out. Now you could use your Cricut to cut it out. I decided just to do it by hand, and I am dropping my first decal into my water. It's got to sit in there for 30 to 60 seconds, and so I'm just cutting out a couple of extras while that is doing its thing. I am doing a mug, as you can see, for this first project. This is just a mug that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, nothing extraordinary. And so I'm going to apply some water to my surface, and I'm going to hold onto one end of my decal and slide the paper out from under. I was so amazed with how easy this was once I got the hang of it, because I did do some other projects you'll see later on. This was probably my 3rd or 4th project, so I'd finally gotten the hang of it. I loved this one the most, so I thought I would show it to you first, and you'll hear some more about my little pitfalls later. But I thought this was so sweet. Fall, sweet fall. And keep in mind that I have this sped up by about 3 times, so I am really going gently over these little decals with my paper towel. So just take your time. Once you have them placed on where you want it, they will slide a little bit. I'm just gently dabbing them. You could see how that one was still sliding a little bit, so you can reposition them to some extent. And then I'm gently just sweeping the water out from under them, holding the decal in place in some instances, and just getting all that excess water out. Look at how sweet. I love this. It is not dishwasher safe though. You want to hand wash these, and then you can also bake them in the oven, set them up a little bit more. And my friends at Hippo have given us a 40% off coupon, which you will find in the description box. DIY number 41. So this is my inspiration for the next project. It's from Kirkland's, and they had these 3 little bud vases that I thought were super cute. And I've had these sitting on my shelf. I actually have 3 of them, but they're all the same shape, so I figured I would just do one. So I cleaned it off real well with my baby wipe, and then I dried it off with a paper towel, and I'm coming in with some Mod Podge, because one of my, actually more than one of my sweet subscribers had shared with me that if you apply some Mod Podge or a clear coat of spray paint or something first to a shiny surface like this, or to glass, your chalk paint or whatever type of paint you're using will adhere a little bit better. So I figured I would go for it, So once that Mod Podge was dry, I went ahead and gave it a coat of plaster chalk paint. This is by Waverly, which is a Plaid product. And I don't know what was going on, but I kept losing the little hairs out of my paintbrush. My paintbrush was like falling apart on me as I was trying to paint this. So I went for another paintbrush and problem was solved. But so I went ahead and gave this a couple of coats. I did use my heat gun in between, and so I did start getting that crackle effect a little bit here and there, but I was really okay with that because it made it look aged, and I actually liked the effect. So now I'm coming in with a little foam dauber. I think that's what it's called, just a round foam. I don't want to say brush, it's not a brush, but hopefully you know what I mean. And I am just dabbing on my Nantucket blue chalk paint. I love this color. It always makes me think of the beach in New England, and that's it, you guys. So simple and so cute. Give me a thumbs up if you like this project. DIY number 42. So I have this from my sweet subscriber Rose, and I am just going to use my spackle here to fill in a couple of the holes that were left from, it was like a little metal plate that was on it. And so this goes on pink and it dries white, so you know when it's dry. I think I picked it up from Lowe's or Home Depot. I honestly don't remember where I got it. I don't think it was Dollar Tree, although they do sell spackle. And then I'm measuring it. This was 4 inches by 5 inches, and I just needed the dimensions for creating my design, which I did on in my Cricut design studio. You could also use Canva, which is free, whatever you want to do. So now I'm giving it a coat of paint with my plaster chalk paint, and of course I have to do the back also because it's going to be standing up on my tiered tray. And before I had painted it, you did see me with my little sandpaper. Now I did seal this. I was just showing you, this is the Aleene's matte clear coat spray, only because I'm using a water slide and I want to make sure that my paint doesn't get impacted by the water. So this is the design that I had created. You absolutely can have your Cricut cut it out if that's of interest and you have a Cricut. But if you don't have a Cricut, all you need is a LaserJet printer. And I'm leaving you a link here in case you didn't see the how-to on my water slide projects. So I've done a couple of videos now on water slides and I've got step-by-step instructions. So if you want to click through on this link, you'll be able to see exactly all of the details. But I'm looking at this, I'm like, you know what, it looks a little bit boring. I think it needs a little something more. So I grabbed my Waverly chalk paint in Fern and I'm just taping it off with my painter's tape on top and bottom. And then I had every intention, once I had the top stripe done and the top side, you'll see in a second I do the side, and then the same thing with the bottom. My intention was let it dry, take the tape off, let it dry, and then put the tape back down and do the other sides. But as I peeled off the tape here, I started looking at it and I started questioning whether I wanted to do the sides. So I put my decal back on here and I'm like, you know what? I kind of like it just like that. And so I thought about it a little bit more and I decided, you know what? I am just going to leave it like that because I think I like it like that. So put my paint away and I moved on. So now I've got my water there. You can see my little decal curling up in the water. It needs to stay in the water for 30 to 60 seconds. And once it is good to go, you can transfer it over onto your project. So I'm going to take a little bit of water and I'm going to dab water on my project just to also help with the gliding, because that way you can kind of slide it around and get it exactly where you want it. So once it's good to go, and remember I've sped this up about 3 times, so that's why it didn't seem like I left it in there for 30 seconds. But you just slide the backing out from under it. Of course, I was moving a little too fast and not paying attention, and the top of my H kind of got caught there and curled under itself. But not to fear, I have a fix for that a little bit later because I did end up damaging it a little bit. But you can see that it does slide around on your surface, so you can get it lined up, get it exactly where you want it, and then I'm just using my paper towel to gently squeegee all of the water out of it. So here I am coming with my Arteza chalk, or this might have been my chalk marker. I can't remember if it was the chalk or the acrylic. I'm not sure, but the little marker did the trick. So then I did have some spots where I had been pulling a little bit too hard on my decal to kind of stretch it a little bit to get it smoothed out, and I ended up cracking the image again. This is operator error, you guys. So I had another Arteza paint marker. I think the other one was acrylic because I think this one was chalk paint, and I was impressed with how close the color was. So I went ahead, when it was wet, it was exactly the right color, but then as it dried, it got a little bit darker, so I decided to just go ahead and fill in all of the letters, and I just left a little bit of a border of that original decal, just because I wanted to make sure that it all looked uniform. So once I got that all filled in and looking nice and pretty, that was it, you guys. So, oh, hello, fall. I think this is so cute. DIY number 43. So for this project, I have a little book from the Dollar Tree, as well as a scarf that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. I'm using my Home Decor White Adirondack chalk paint. I'm going to give this 2 coats because I just wanted to make sure that that image was completely hidden because the scarf is relatively sheer. I am going to measure off my scarf in a way that will cover up my book. Now you can totally use scrapbook paper or something else for this. It does not have to be the scarf. I just thought that this would look super cute. So I'm cutting off that end tassel. I'm going to save that and use that a little bit later for this. So trimming down all of the fabric so that I've got just enough for what I need to do here. And then coming in with my Mod Podge. I'm starting at that base edge, and my thought is I'm going to come in and apply the scarf actually upside down because I'm going to flip it over the top to create like a clean edge, if you will. But then I was noticing that I was able to tuck it in right between the layers of this little book. So it actually ended up being a lot easier than I had anticipated. So I worked my way around the little book and made sure that everything was covered and taut, and as I went I gave it a coat of Mod Podge on the exterior as well. And here you can see with my little paintbrush and my Mod Podge I'm able to just tuck that right into that little gap in the book, so it worked out great. And then I just wrapped it around the lid, and I'm not worried about how this looks right now because we are going to be covering that up in just a minute. So just like I was wrapping a gift, just folded all of that down. So now I'm coming in with my Arteza felt, and I was trying to decide between the colors there, and I finally settled on the darker forest green. And I am going to go ahead and flip it over and trace the box. Now I did offset the box a little bit because I wanted to make sure that this piece is a little bit smaller than the inside lid. So just checking my sizing there, worked out great. This is self-adhesive, so pulling off the backing, and then I'm just going to apply it right to the interior of my lid. So it's nice and finished looking. So cute. So now I am just back with that little tassel. I trimmed off all of the excess fabric, so I just had the little edge that was sewn, and I'm using that as my bookmark. And then I decided our book needed to have a title, so Forever Gold, A Leprechaun's Guide. And I was struggling with getting this to stick to the fabric, you guys. It was tough. So if you do use scrapbook paper, you will not have a problem with this. If you choose to use fabric, just be prepared to struggle with it a little bit. Eventually I did get it all set and down. The transfer tape I had used was probably a little bit smaller than I should have used because then my letters were shifting down at the bottom, so I did end up having to move them, some of them by hand, and rearrange them. it eventually all worked out, just took a little bit of patience and I got it all settled. But then what I decided to do is take my backing paper and go back over it. I didn't want to use my little tool over top of it directly because I was afraid I might catch some of the vinyl and lift it. So I definitely recommend putting something between your project and your little tool when you go in to burnish it again, just to protect it and make sure you don't accidentally lift it up. And there it is. Isn't it sweet? Give me a big thumbs up if you like the project. DIY number 44. So I have this little crate from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to get it prepped, and then I'm going to give it a good coat of paint with my Adirondack white chalk paint by Home Decor. Now I've got my sunny porch. This is also chalk paint by Home Decor, and I'm giving that middle stripe, or what do you call that? You know what I mean. A coat of the sunny porch. This is my pumpkin chalk paint. Now I either should have done the bottom with the orange, or I should have realized that I was going to need to do the top orange, because these are supposed to be like a little mini book stack, right? So whatever that top slat, that is the word I was looking for before. I had done the yellow slat and then the orange slat. But whatever that top slat was going to be, that's what the top needed to be, because these are supposed to be like little mini books, right? So I'm coming in, once everything was dry, I did give that 2 coats of paint. But I've got my Arteza acrylic paint marker, and I am writing my word on backwards. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to make sure that I ended up at a certain place on the right side. I was a little less concerned with my or, but when I was writing out trick, and the same thing with treat here, I wanted to make sure I had enough room. So, and that I didn't also end up with a big gap that wasn't uniform. So I just wrote my words backwards. So neat little trick there if you ever need help with your spacing. And when you use your Arteza paint markers, if you use the alternate tip, make sure you remember to flip it back around so you don't squish it when you put the lid on. I'm famous for doing that. So here I have this little pick that I picked up from the Hobby Lobby several years ago. It's been in my stash. I cut down the wire. I apologize for being off frame here, you guys. I tried to adjust my camera to get closer to my projects for you, and I'm not used to to where I need to stay. So I had trimmed off that wire, and then I tucked it down underneath that fatter part of the pick just to give it a nice clean edge. Now I'm using my Dollar Tree green gingham ribbon. Try and say that 5 times fast. Green gingham ribbon. And I am tying that around our little book stack and also securing the pick with it, and just making sure that my knot is nice and tight. And then I'm going to come in with some more ribbon. I just did 3 loops on either side to create a little bow. And then, you know what, I don't know what I was thinking, because I did this the hardest possible way. I am sure that when you do this, you will be able to do it in a way that is much easier. At first I thought I was going to be able to just use my little tails that were already there, flip them under. I normally have a neat trick with this, but the fact that I'd already tied a knot in it that was attached to the box, it wasn't giving me the play that I needed for this to work properly. So I took that last little piece of ribbon that I still had, and I fashioned a little piece to go around the middle of the ribbon to make it look like a neat little bow. So, like I said, you know what, in hindsight, I should have just done that around the ribbon itself and then glued the whole thing, or, you know, around the loopy ribbon bow thing to create that center, and then just glue the whole thing down. But you know what, I guess I just needed an extra challenge this night. So I'm just coming in with some extra glue to make sure that my pick is secure. And then that's it, you guys. I'm loving this one too. DIY number 45. So I have another one of those little wood cutouts, and I've got a bunch of my paint colors from Plaid, and I am starting out with this really beautiful blue color, and it was just making me so happy. I love this color. So I then came in and painted my sails white. And I am doing both sides of these because I am just going to be having this lean up on my little tier tray, and so I just want to make sure both sides are equally pretty. So once I had my sail painted and completely dry, I am coming in with another shade. I think this is like a seafoam green color. It's so pretty. And I am painting, I don't know, do you call these racing stripes for a boat? I don't really know what you would call these on a sail. If you happen to be a sailor and know what these stripes might be called, if anything, let me know in the comments. But I just went ahead and painted on a wide band, and I made sure to take it up around the other side of the sail because the sail is two-sided and you would see the stripes on either side of the sail. And then I did come in and create another smaller stripe just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I've got my wide stripe and my narrow stripe. And then I went ahead and carried those stripes across the other sail. So once I had that all nice and dry, I'm just checking that it's dry there. I'm coming in with my sanding block from the Dollar Tree, just because I did want it to be a little bit aged. It looked too bright and too new and too shiny penny, you know. So I'm just coming in and distressing it with my sanding block. And there you have it. Let me know what you think. DIY number 46. For this project, I've got a little trinket box or jewelry box from the Dollar Tree, and then I have a little decal there that I created on my Silhouette Cameo. So this is going to be a super quick and easy project. I'm getting my little decal ready, weeding that away, and then I am going to use my transfer tape. I did separate the B well, so I'm going to apply that right to the box lid. I'm only using the lid for this project, and you'll see why in just a moment. But once I've got that all lined up, I'll burnish it on there and peel that away, and just such an easy thing to do. So once I have my Be Well all set, I'm taking a large popsicle stick and I'm cutting that in two, and then I am going to just make sure that everything is the same length. And then I'm going to secure those together with some little pieces of skewer, just using my hot glue. I probably should have used wood glue for this, but just for the sake of time, I was using hot glue. So if you want something that's going to stick permanently, it's probably better to use wood glue. And now I am just going to use this to prop up my little lid because this is now becoming a sign. So just used a whole bunch of hot glue in there to secure it in place, adding a little bit more for added security. And then I kind of propped it inside its little box part to let it cool. And then once it was done, it was all set. DIY number 47. So for this one, I have this little love cutout from the Dollar Tree. Are you seeing a theme here? Everything is Dollar Tree today. I love it. I've got my home decor chalk paint once again. We've got a lot of white happening in today's projects. I also thought I was going to be using two of these little hearts. It turned out I was only going to use one, but essentially I gave the whole thing just one good coat of the chalk paint, and now I'm trying to see what I'm doing with these hearts. I didn't paint the top of that O thinking it was going to be covered up, and then I'm like, yeah, girl, you need to cover that up. So I went back in and painted it the way that I should have in the first place. So do as I say, not as I do. Go ahead and paint the whole thing first. So then I decided I wanted to distress it a little bit. It was just a little too perfect. So I came in with my Dollar Tree sanding block, and I am just really hitting all of the edges to rough them up, and then I go ahead and I actually accidentally hit the heart. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll rough up the heart too. Of course, I like popped it off of there, but I gave it a good distressing, and then I went ahead and finished up the rest of the piece before putting it back on there, and it stuck right back on again, and all was well. And I love this little piece. I think it's so cute. Simple, but really pretty. DIY number 48. So this is, again, another really simple project. You've actually seen me do these. If you watch my videos frequently, you've seen me do these a couple of times recently. I seem to be on this beaded garland kick now. I did one and I fell in love with it, and now I'm just making a whole bunch of them. So I actually did lose some of my footage at the end. So I will put a link to one of my recent videos where I showed you how I did the tassels. Because I did not capture that footage for this particular project. So if you're interested in seeing that, check out my description box and I'll be sure to have a link for you there. But I'm essentially coming in and painting these all different fun colors that made me think of Easter. So I've got pink and orange and a couple of shades of green and blue and purple and yellow and basically the rainbow. So I got all of my little beads painted, and then I am using, this is a gray baker's twine that I'd found at the Dollar Tree, and I think this roll is something like 160 feet, maybe? Now, the little beads that I'm using here, because I was running out, I didn't have any of my larger beads left, so these are all smaller beads, and my needle that I've been using with the larger beads did not fit through the hole on these smaller beads, so I'm having to do it by hand. So I just added some hot glue to the tip of my little baker's twine, and that helped create a point that I could use to thread all of my beads. So simple project. DIY number 49. So for this project, I have 3 little circles that I've gotten from a value pack of wood pieces from the Dollar Tree, and then I showed you 2 larger circles that came from, I believe it was a pack of 8 circles that I had left over from other projects. I have all of those fun paper straws from the Dollar Tree that are patriotic for the United States, and then I was showing you my Star Bond glue that I'm using with the accelerator. Now this accelerator, I'm telling you, it sticks immediately. I hadn't quite lined up those first 2 circles completely, and when I stuck them together, there was just no moving them. So it was okay, because these aren't going to see. These will not be seen. They will be hidden. So it was good enough for my purposes. So now I am taking my 2 larger circles, I'm giving one side a quick coat of my Adirondack white chalk paint, and you're not going to see the underside, which is why I only did one side of it. I know you all, if you've watched me for any length of time, know that I like to have all of my sides of my projects completely finished, so not to worry, the unpainted side will not be seen. So I've got my little joy out once more. I'm going to do a very simple design, so it's not even really a design. I'm cutting out USA, so I'm just going through the app, I'm picking out a font that I want, I'm typing in USA, and then I am going to use my fingers to just make it the size that I want it. And once I have it where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and get it cut out on my little machine. So you can see there, USA. I'm just checking and making sure that it's what I want. And then I'm going to send it to cut. So opening up my little joy. I do have this on the mat again, only because I'm using a scrap piece. And went ahead and hit send. After it loaded, it's cutting it out. And then it tells me it's done. I hit unload and it's done, right? So I am putting my little protective sheet back on there. If you haven't worked with a vinyl cutter before, the mats are sticky to hold and grip the vinyl when it's going through the machine. So I always like to just put my protector back over top of it so that it doesn't get, you know, dust and hair and Sammy fur on it. So I like to keep it clean. So I have my little white rounds that are dry now, and I'm prepping my letters. And once I get that off, just using my little burnishing tool to help me with that, I'm going to apply it to the center of one of my white painted circles. So just gonna burnish that. And again, you can hand letter this, you could stencil this, you know, there are a lot of different ways you could do this. You do not have to have a vinyl cutter to make this project. Okay. So now I am going to take one of my rounds, and I have a piece of parchment paper, and I am just going to trace the round on here, and I'm cutting it out. I'm making a little template, basically a little pattern, and then I'm going to fold it in half a few different times. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm looking for center, and this is the easiest way for me personally to find the middle of a project. So I am just folding it a bunch of times until I am certain that they're all intersecting in the middle, and then I'm going to fold it all over on itself along those creases, snip a teeny tiny little hole at the point, and then I'm going to mark the center on my wood round. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the little one. I'm just using the larger cutout that I already have, and I just traced my small circle, did the same thing, folding it, finding center. I'm just going to mark that one. I'm lining that up with the mark on my wood because I'm using parchment paper so I can see through it, right? So I know you can't really see here in the video, but I was able to line up my two little markings. So I know that I have my circle in the center here. I started to trace it. Parchment paper is a little challenging to trace because it kept wanting to lift. So I am just using the edge of my pencil and kind of scribbling around it so I can see where I'm going to want to set my circle down. And I'm not worried about this being messy because again, this is not going to be showing. So using some of my glue, using my accelerator and putting that down, and then it is bonded. So now I'm taking my patriotic straws, and I was trying to decide how many of these I was going to need. There were 8 of the blue and then 8 of the red and white stripes, and I decided I only needed 4 of the blue because I'm going to be cutting them in half. So here I am trying to find center, and I ended up giving up because it wasn't like an even number and math just wasn't working for me that night. So I did it by eye, and you know, would you believe that I actually cut it right in the middle? I could not do that again if you paid me. But I just used that first one that I cut and used that as my little measure to cut down the rest of them. And hopefully you're starting to get an idea of what I'm doing here. I'm going to be making a little flag starburst sort of thing. I guess that's what you would call this, is like a starburst. But the straws were rolling around on me a little bit, so I decided to start squeezing the little ends. So I just kind of smooshed the end that I knew was going to get glued down to help prevent it from rolling a little bit. And so maybe like a quarter to a half an inch at the bottom, I did that. And then I went ahead and cut down all 8 of my red and white striped straws and just did the same thing. I had used one of my blue ones to measure it, and then I just cut them all down in half. And then I went ahead and I squished the little ends of all of my red and white striped straws too. So once I had them all lined up where I wanted them, I just made sure that they were spaced around there and all butting up to that center circle, and then I used a whole bunch of hot glue. And I was very generous with this, and I let it kind of ooze in between all the straws so that I made sure that it was getting down into the wood on the base so that they would be nice and secure. And then I put a whole bunch of glue in the middle and took my other circle and set it right on top, made sure it was lined up, and I pressed down so that all of the straws would lift up off the table because they were all kind of like slanted a little bit, and now they are evenly between the 2 rounds. I think this is so sweet. Let me know what you think. DIY number 50. So I have one of these little, I think it's actually a decanter vase from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just getting an idea of how large I want to make my decal in a little bit. But for right now, I decided I was going to go ahead and give it a good coat of paint. I knew I was going to need to give it a second coat of paint, and I don't know if you have the same challenge as I do painting on glass, but when I go back in to give it my second coat of paint, it gets gloppy or it wants to pull the first layer up. It's just, I always find it to be a challenge. So I started to, I don't know why, but I decided I was going to start painting the inside of this a little bit. And as I was doing it, it occurred to me, well, what if I had just painted the inside of it to begin with? Maybe I would have had a nice even surface on the outside. I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try that. So I had another one in my stash. I went ahead and grabbed it, and I decided I was going to paint the inside. And I actually liked the way this looked so much better. And you're going to understand a little bit more why in just a few minutes when you see the decal that I'm going to be putting on this. So I went ahead and I just made sure that the entire inside was covered. I did end up pouring a little bit of extra paint in there and let it swoosh around, and then I set it upside down to dry. So now I've got my little Cricut Joy again, and I am creating a label for this. It's something that was already designed in their little studio, and then I'm going to go ahead and weed it out. And I am loving this little decal. Milk for Santa. So once I had it all set and I got it onto my transfer tape, I just went ahead and I was able to apply it right to my little now milk jug. And look at how sweet this is. And it actually looks like it has milk in it because I painted the inside of it. So the one that I painted exterior, I'll save that for another project in the future, and I'm sure that it will be used for something at some point. But look at how cute. So now I grabbed some of my Dollar Tree ribbon from my stash. This is all stuff that I had picked up last year. And I am just going to try and create a little bow around the neck of the bottle. So I decided I was just going to do a simple knot there, trimmed off the ends. And now I am flipping the ribbon around and around, just looping it over itself. This is a one-sided ribbon, so I needed to make sure that I was keeping the pattern on the outside. So I just flipped it around. I made sure that I had it enough for 5 loops on either side, and then I notched it. You could see there. Wendy from White Sparrow Living makes the best bows, and this is how she makes hers. So thank you, Wendy, for the tips. I love this. And so then I'm just gonna pull it all apart in different directions, having that notch there. And you saw that I attached it with some floral wire in the middle. You could use a chenille stem, whatever you have on hand to just secure that in the middle. But having those notches allows all the little loops to go in different directions. And then I just trimmed off my wire, and I'm going to attach it with some hot glue right there to the knot that I had created on the neck of the bottle. And that's it. I think this is super sweet. Wait till you see here. There it is. Look how cute. I love this. I hope you like it too. DIY number 51. So for this project, it's going to be super simple. I have a couple of mugs from the Dollar Tree. I have some vinyl from Cricut. This obviously is a red buffalo check. It also makes me think of plaid. And so I went into the Cricut Studio on my phone app, and I just punched in an A and an R, and I am going to be doing initial mugs. And I saw something like this on Pinterest, and I thought it was the cutest idea. So I did 2 of each letter because I want to make the mugs have a front and a back, so no matter which way you hold the mug, you can see the letter. And so one is for Rich and the other is for Elena. So my fiance and my daughter are both going to be getting some mugs. And I just love the size of these mugs too. They are nice and big and fantastic. fantastic. So once my little Cricut Joy had cut out the decals, you can see here I'm just applying them with some transfer tape. And you can see I'm just using a little bottle of paint underneath my mug handle to help me keep it steady and where I want it. That is it. Such a simple and fun project, and you can personalize anything this way. Just love it. But let me know what you think. Here are my mugs all done, both of them. DIY number 52. So I have these stickers from when my son first went into the Marines, and they've been sitting in my stash. I hadn't really known what to do with them. And then I've got from the wood pile, I think these were $2.99 for 2 from Hobby Lobby. So I've pulled one of those out. I got it prepped, and I am just going to give it a good coat of my Adirondack white chalk paint by Home Decor, and I'm going to coat all sides of this. Once it was all dry, I'm literally just going to take my sticker, I'm just using one of them, and I'm going to apply it, I'm centering it in the middle of my round, and then I'm just going to burnish it gently with my little Cricut tool here. This is such an easy project. If y'all know somebody who has a family member in the military, this is something you could easily do. And, you know, this is just an idea for inspiration also, right? So you could put anything on these rounds. They're fantastic. So now I'm coming in with some brushed metal gold paint and just going to give it a nice trim. I just thought it would set it off nicely since there's gold in the sticker design. And now I want to let you know what I am doing. I appreciate all of you so much. My channel has been growing, and it just makes my heart happy with all the comments you all provide and the likes and the shares, and thank you so much. At the time I'm recording this, I'm a little over 17,000 subscribers, and when I hit 20,000 subscribers, I am going to have a drawing for a Cricut Joy bundle package. So I am going to give away a Joy with some of the tools and some of the materials that go along with it. And so when you comment on today's video, because this is the video from which I will be doing the drawing when I hit 20,000 subscribers, you will be entered to win. All you have to do is comment, let me know what gives you joy. Let me know what gives you joy, and it can have something to do with the 4th of July holiday, it can have something to do with hometown pride, or just anything that gives you joy. Let me know what gives you joy, and you will be entered to win as soon as I hit 20,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. I absolutely adore every single one of you. So I am just finishing this up with the gold trim, and then that is going to be it. Such an easy and sweet project, and this really has a special place in my heart because my son is a member of the Marines, and yeah, super proud. So let me know what you think. And apparently I'm going to show you a whole lot more of this trimming, so thank you for your patience. There we go. DIY number 53. So for this project, I am using the Farmer's Market calendar as well as a little wooden block from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be using these images on the back. You can see I've actually already cut some of them out, so I'm going to be using some of the ones that are left. But first I am going to coat my block with my Adirondack white chalk paint. I'm just going to give it one good coat of paint on all sides. And once that is all painted, I'm going to go ahead and set it aside to dry, and then I will work on cutting out, well, I thought I was going to cut them, but then I decided I was going to rip them out, my little images. And the reason that I decided to rip them, I knew that I was going to be Mod Podging them onto the block, and I wanted the edges to be a little bit rougher, especially since this has got kind of like a farmer's market kind of theme to it. So I didn't want it to have perfect edges. So you can certainly cut it if you choose. I opted not to. I opted to rip them all. Did take a little bit of extra time, but it gave me the look that I was going for. So I'm coming in with my Mod Podge in satin for this particular project. It doesn't really matter if you use the satin or the gloss or the matte, because it's not going to show, it's going to be underneath. I am not going to be sealing the fronts of these. I am just doing the back. So I just made sure that after I applied it to the wood block, you saw me also applying the Mod Podge to the edges of the piece that I was putting down, and then I'm just going through and making sure that all my edges are nice and flat and all sealed. So once I had everything on there and everything was good to go, I went ahead and grabbed my sanding block, and I just wanted to sand the edges again to make it a little bit rough and distressed. And you could totally come in with an antique wax or something and distress it even more. I opted just to leave it a little bit cleaner and just wanted the edges a little roughed up, but you can certainly do whatever makes your heart happy. And if you're enjoying these projects, I hope you'll give me a big thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you'll consider doing that. And I appreciate all of my awesome subscribers who keep returning. Here's the final project. Let me know what you think. DIY number 54. So I have from my stash again these little cutout wooden stockings, and I believe I actually had gotten these from Michael's, and I think there are 6 of them there. I must have used one last year, and so this is what I had left, but it was perfect for what I wanted to do. Used my Adirondack white chalk paint again, as you could see, and I am now just tracing out the letters for my words here. Now you'll notice that the little tips of the toes did not get the white paint. I wasn't worried about it. That was where I was holding on to them, but I'm going to be covering that with red anyway. So I just want to make sure I had a nice coat of white all over the area where my letters were going to be, because I wanted those to show through in white. So now I'm going in and filling in with my Imperial red chalk paint. I believe this is a Wave, or no, I'm mistaken, it's not Waverly, it's Home Decor. They're both plaid products, so by the same company, just a different line, if you will, but all chalk paint. So you can use whatever red you have. You could use an acrylic paint. It doesn't have to be chalk paint. I'm just using what I have in my stash and what is going to give me the best coverage for what I'm trying to do. So once I have my red all taken care of, I am stringing these little stockings along with some of my green jingle bells, and I'm just adding a jingle bell in between the holes and then also in between each stocking, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz and make it a little bit more fun. So there they are, so cute. And then I did go ahead and just add one more jingle bell to either end, and then I just put a knot in it to make sure that everything was going to stay put. So just a cute little jingle garland. DIY number 55. So this was my inspiration for this next project. You'll have to tell me if this one is actually a fail. because I'm still not sure how I feel about this one, but I am using one of these vases from the Dollar Tree, and I am also using from the Dollar Tree the faux leather ribbon, and I'm securing it with hot glue. I'm starting out with my bands that are going around the circumference. Is that what you would say? Around the perimeter? You can see what I'm doing. I am attaching them around the vase and I guess about a third of the way down and then about 2/3 of the way down, and just securing them a couple of times in a couple of spots around the vase. So now I'm coming in and going to do an angled crisscross kind of dealy with the same faux leather ribbon, and again just using my hot glue to secure everything in place. And eventually I actually ran out of this chocolate faux leather ribbon. This took more ribbon than I had anticipated, and I wasn't sure honestly how much I had left on the roll. If you do want to attempt this, I probably used the equivalent of 2 full rolls of the ribbon, and I think they are 9-foot spools, if I'm not mistaken. So when I ran out of the chocolate, I went and grabbed the other color that I had, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. We'll see how it looks. At least it was symmetrical with what I already had on there, so I just went for it. So we have a two-toned piece here. So going ahead and continuing on and just putting everything in at an angle, starting at the top and working my way around to the bottom and just having everything crisscross. So it's got kind of a cool pattern. Once I had all of that done, I went ahead and started adding a piece around the top, and I'm just securing the bottom half of the ribbon. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, and I'm pulling it tight because I'm going to end up folding it around the lip to give a finished edge at the top. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just pulling it tight as I can without having it slide up off of the vase. And then once I got to the end, I went ahead and started securing it inside the vase. So taking, needed some more hot glue. So taking my hot glue and adding that to the inside and just wrapping that around the lip of the vase all the way around. So then I wanted to just add one more piece of ribbon at the base of that just to cover up that edge and just make it a little bit more substantial because it was just a really small edge right there. Hopefully you can kind of see it there and see what I mean. So I just wanted to just add one more layer and have it be a little bit thicker at the top there. Hopefully that makes sense. So once I had all of that secured at the top, I did go in and I added a band to the bottom as well. Just more hot glue and just making sure that everything is nice and secured along the bottom there to finish off that edge. Trying my best to get as close to the inspiration piece as I can. So now I have this one last piece of the faux leather ribbon that I am trimming down to make for that little faux handle, if you will. And I just curved the edges on either side. And now I am figuring out where I want to place them. And I'm going to secure those with some hot glue as well. Just a little tiny dab on either side to make sure that they are nice and secure. And once I have that done, I am grabbing these little brass thumbtacks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to clip off the little pokey part. And I am going to then use these as little brads on either side of the lantern. And they still had a little bit of a pokey thingy there, so they kind of stuck right into the faux leather ribbon. But I did use some hot glue there just to make sure everything was nice and secure and not going to be going anywhere. And just a reminder, this is metal, so it does get hot with the hot glue, so make sure you use your finger protector so you don't burn yourself in there. And there it is. So like I said, jury's out on this one, but let me know what you think in the comments. So I have some shower curtain rings and then a bunch of little fun garland, I guess you would call this. So I took all the shower curtain rings, and normally this is a pack of 12, I believe, but I only had 11 because I had used one of these for another project. And I decided I was going to try and hook them all together first. Later, I realized I should have just left them apart, so do as I say, not as I do here. I am using the opening here. I'm realizing I need it open again to my advantage. I'm hooking the little, I'm going to call this garland for lack of a better term, but hooking that to the one end, and then I am going to be wrapping it all the way around each of my little rings. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to end up wrapping every single ring so that they'll be completely covered with the garland. And at some point I do realize here that it's going to be easier if I don't connect them from the start. There it is. So I set the rest of them aside. I'm using that opening with the ring to my advantage. And once I get it almost completely covered, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to cut off the end to help me finish that up. But I'll close it off first. I don't know if I showed you closing it, but I closed the shower curtain ring and then I wrapped it the rest of the way. So that's the first one. And I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to start on the second one. So I'm just going to take that one off, and this is what I'm going to do in gold. So I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue to secure it at the edge. And you want to make sure that you don't get it in the way of where the shower curtain ring comes together. It will lock itself together. So I'm leaving it open right now and just making sure that I'm not covering up the locking mechanism. So I'm going to wrap that all the way around, and once I get all the way around with the whole thing covered, again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut a tail for myself. I'm going to hook this into the first one, so now they're linked. I'm going to close it up, and then I will go ahead and cover up the closure with the rest of that little trim, that tail that I had left. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of these. And I'm just going to alternate the colors. So I have red, gold, and silver. I don't have any green. They didn't have any when I was looking for it at my Dollar Tree last year. So this is what I have to work with. But you can make as many of these or as few of these as you want. And I just thought it would be a really fun little thing to have on my tiered tray. Here we are with the final reveal. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, I hope that you'll give me a big thumbs up. Please leave a comment and let me know what your favorite project was. It really does help YouTube to notice me when I have your comments and your likes. So thank you, as always, for the wonderful support. I appreciate you all. Until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.